Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube. Is that a Kirk Cousins? Little voice crack right there. We're live on YouTube Monday morning, Week 13 NFL review. Sam, freshly shaved from Movember. We're into December now.
Bald all over.
It's good to know. Good to know. We got 16 games to review, Sam. Did you have a good Thanksgiving? Let's get this out of the way.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, wonderful. It's great.
Excellent.
Saw some friends, hung out. It's great. Good time.
I freshly shaved for the first time in a decade plus. And
more on that later.
My 11-year-old daughter was like, how quickly will it grow back? It's terrible. It being just, my face.
Your face. Yeah. She hasn't seen your face, ever.
It's bad. Cover it up again with hair.
Well, we had to give fair warning to the viewers as well. If you're listening, check out the YouTube. Sam looks different.
Yeah, big thanks for everybody. I
we gotta get rid of these.
$867, I think, was my Movember haul for November with ridiculous facial hair. And now I have no facial hair whatsoever.
And I think I got you close to 1,000.
Nice.
Total. So with 100 something.
Big thanks to the Check the Mic people, our first charity drive, and we're in the neighborhood of $1,000 raised.
Yeah, much appreciated. We will we'll do more on the charity front. But yeah, we both shaved. Mustaches are gone. I'm not completely bald, though.
No, you have hair on top.
Though you claim it's receding. Anyway.
I have fluff on my head again.
So we got a lot to talk about. You ready?
Yeah.
Let's start with Thanksgiving. Way back on Thursday, the 3 games from Thanksgiving, which included a head coach firing for the Chicago Bears. So let's start with that one. Detroit Lions 23, Chicago Bears 20. Lions move to 11-1. Bears fall to 4-8. By the way, the whole show is brought to you by PrizePicks. More on them later. Shout out to PrizePicks. Needed to get that in.
Yeah.
Almost forgot.
Nicely done.
So the Bears fall to 4-8. They end up firing Matt Eberflus after the game. More on that in a minute. Were you shocked that this game was this close? The Lions moved the ball about as easily as any team I've seen in a while. And they were only up 16-0. It felt like it could have been 30.
If you had only shown somebody the first half of this game, there is simply no way that they would believe you that it became a game in which the last 30 seconds were even remotely relevant, right? Like, Eberflus is fired because of what happened in the last 30 seconds of this game. If someone had only watched the first half, they simply wouldn't believe that the 30 seconds at the end of the game would be in any way, shape, or form consequential, because it was just complete and total domination from Detroit in the first half. They had 18 first downs before Chicago got their first down in the game. They were moving the ball at will. The Bears couldn't move it at all. The Lions were just absolutely stomping them. Now, they didn't quite get there on the scoreboard. Like Tyree Stevenson actually forced the fumble on Jahmyr Gibbs. I guess saved the game at that point, given the way the second half unfolded. But it's mind-blowing that this game even became remotely close given that first half.
Yeah, to the Bears' credit, they forced 3 field goals and then a red zone turnover, right? So that's why what we're talking about, it felt like snap after snap, the Lions have every answer. Was it Romo on the call for that? I think talking about, every blade of grass, you got to cover it against the Lions, and you felt that, right? So it's 16-0 in the first half. Easily could have been 30. If they just score one more touchdown, 2 more touchdowns, don't fumble the whole thing. Bears come back. It's 23-7 into the second half, 23-13, and then it's 23-20 after Caleb Williams hits DJ Moore with a 31-yard touchdown. And then we have the end of the game sequence, which I know you're saying got Eberflus fired. That was probably the tipping point on, just a whole season of disappointment for the Bears.
Well, that and his press conference got him fired.
Yeah, he did not take responsibility for the end of game responsibility.
It was even worse than that. He basically said, "No, we did it right."
Actually, he kind of did take responsibility. He said, "No, we nailed it."
Yeah. He was like, I'm kind of happy with the way it went. Obviously, we didn't get the results. He was like, trust the process. This was the process, and sometimes the process doesn't get the results you want. But actually, if you look at it, in totality, we kind of nailed it. We got it right. That, I think, was a bit of a problem. Also, the fact that pretty much every player came out and kind of threw him under the bus at the end of it. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, all these sort of veteran players were basically like, we felt like we did enough to win. Somebody else screwed up, kind of, not naming any names or pointing any fingers. But that seemed fairly pointed that, players had lost the confidence in him. I will say that people are completely absolving Caleb Williams for a massive screw up in that sequence as well. So
can we, really quick, before you get into, do you want to describe the blow by blow on the sequence?
Well,
I want to give you the stat before we get into it.
Okay, give me the stat.
Because we're like, what is this? What was the situation that Matt Eberflus and the Bears screwed up? And from Opta Stats, in the last 30 NFL seasons, over 1,500 times, 1,501 times has a team lost by 1 to 3 points in regulation, including the postseason. Of those, only the Bears on Thursday ran a play from inside the opponent's 30 on the final drive, but ultimately just had time expire without bringing out the field goal unit and without using all their timeouts. So over 1,500 regular and postseason time. I mean, I love these stats.
Who was it earlier in the season that just didn't bother running any more plays and just kicked the field goal? And everyone was like, you idiot, he's settling for the points right now. He was just prescient. He didn't want to get into this situation. He knew. He saw.
He didn't want somebody to make fun of him.
Right, exactly. He's like, take it now. Take the kick. Don't let this happen.
So, again, the Bears in game tying field goal position, had timeouts, had 40 seconds on the clock?
Second and 20, right? They get an illegal use of hands penalty on Tevin Jenkins on 2nd and 10 from the 25. That backs them up 10 yards. Then they get that play. There's something screwed up on that play. Like linemen weren't out of their stances. It was just like an immediate insta sack, which is a terrible thing to happen to you at that point. So 2nd and 20, insta sack. That play went off at 36 seconds. By the time the play ended, it's like 33, 32 seconds, right? Then the question is simply, okay, we just got sacked on 2nd down. That's bad. Do we call the timeout immediately, our last timeout, and then we have a time to think about what we're going to do, how we're going to use up the next play, then it's 3rd down, and then we presumably run one play, get a little bit closer, then kick on 4th down, but we potentially have to run the field goal unit on. That kind of, you need 19 seconds, I think, is the number to get the field goal on and be comfortable and be able to kick. Or do we let the clock run, be able to use any play to the middle of the field, call the timeout, and then be able to move the kick team on at leisure? Eberflus's plan apparently was to do the second part. I want to have the entire field available to me. I'm going to let the clock run. We're going to call a play to the middle of the field. Then we call timeout. Kick team comes on. Where it really screwed up is Caleb Williams seemed unaware that they could stop the clock. I believe we have audio of him kind of realizing this only after the fact while talking to the media. Or do we have?
Just waiting on Caleb Williams' audio.
Yeah, I ended up changing the play because, with the play we had, 13 seconds, any play you have with 13 seconds with no time, or timeout, but with, that situation, 13 seconds, make a call, and try and get it snapped and take the shot.
So that genuinely seems like the first time it occurred to him that, oh, wait, yeah, we did have a timeout. We could have stopped the clock there.
Do you think he misspoke, or do you think
I think he genuinely
the situation, saying we had no, it completely messed with him. He thought they had no timeout.
I think he got to the point where he's like, it just locked in his brain that we're running out of time here. I don't have enough time for multiple plays. So he changes the play at the line and turns it into that, we only have one play left, I'm going to take a deep shot. I genuinely think it didn't occur to him until talking to the media that, we had a timeout. We could have actually stopped the clock here and been fine. So where it really screwed up is he starts changing the play at the line, I think with 13 seconds on the clock. So they've already let 20 seconds go off, right? Which is fine as long as you're running the play at 13 seconds when you're lined up. They didn't. He starts changing the play at 13 seconds. That's the point where Eberflus has to go, timeout. It's gone to hell. There's been a breakdown of communication. Something has gone wrong. Caleb's brain is glitched, and he thinks we don't have a timeout. I need to use it here, and we'll talk about it. And, I need to sacrifice the middle of the field thing, but we can still run a play, still get the kick. Instead, Eberflus just watched this unfold in front of him, and the Bears end up taking a shot with, no time left. Incomplete, no kick, everybody loses, go home, people are fired.
Well summed up. I know during Thanksgiving sometimes people are moving around, they're cooking this and that. I was like in transit to my friend's house where I was going, trying to keep up with all of this, and then trying to explain to his family, my friend's family, who invited me over, like how the clock management went. I was trying to explain to them what was going on, and very confused by it. So yeah, that was an ugly finish for the Bears. It's a minor miracle that they were even in the game.
Right.
So it's almost like that would have kind of been an epic collapse from a Lions perspective.
Would have been crazy
because of their red zone woes.
If you'd watched the first half, if they had lost that game, it would have been absolutely mind-blowing.
We can't spend too much time on it, but that's the basic gist of it. So Eberflus is out. We touched on it a little bit last night. I know you wanted to do a video, do an instant reaction on Friday, but I was over there getting a Christmas tree, throwing everything off on Friday. Instant, quick reaction on Eberflus, this job for the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, evidently it had been coming. I mean, people have been calling for his job for a long time. Remember, Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, was sort of identified as the problem earlier on. They made a change there. It did make a significant difference. There's been an uptick in performance across the board there. And to be fair, like the defensive side of the ball has been the better side in Chicago for most of the season, which is his side. So, but he's got some absurd record in one-score games, like the worst win percentage in the NFL or something in one-score games. And at some point, that's a head coaching thing. And this was, I think, a good example where, to be clear, I'm not saying all of the blame rests on Caleb Williams, right? It's okay to say they both screwed up, right?
Yeah.
I think most people that I've seen have said as soon as the sack happens on second down, you call the timeout.
Yeah, reset.
And I think that's a reasonable, I think it's fair to say that's probably the most, most coaches would call that timeout then, right? I also think there's a fair argument to say we still want to do it the other way. We want to run a play to anywhere on the field and be able to use that timeout to get the kickoff, and that's the way he went. So I think it's fair to say that was it's fair to say that approach is a reasonable strategy at that point. But he screws up huge when it becomes clear that Caleb Williams has gone off the reservation, is changing the play, and he just watches this nightmare unfold in front of him and doesn't do anything. I mean, you have to call the timeout and save that.
The sack itself was ugly. I mean, I saw all O-line Twitter, Mitchell Schwartz, and everybody debating what it was. It was likely a QB draw.
Yeah.
And we don't know.
But both tackles seem slow out of their stance. They're on the different cadence or something.
Yeah, the right tackle just didn't even get anything on whoever got the sack there. Left tackle's kind of setting up for the draw.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad call. 2nd and 20.
Sure.
And you're gonna, sucker them in, and you're trying to grab 10 or 12 yards. But horrible. I mean, horrible execution.
Disaster of a play.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yes, everything was bad there.
And that's
the
one reason where I think the sort of prevailing wisdom is call timeout after that. That was a huge screw up. If nothing else, we need to make sure that the next play goes off well.
I was going to say the one last thing I wanted to bring up was a lot of times you're the Bears, you're going to draft Caleb Williams, and you have a somewhat shaky head coach in Matt Eberflus who's multiple years in, and they made the decision to roll with old coach, new quarterback. A lot of times you get the clean reset, right?
Yeah.
New coach, new quarterback. I brought up last night, I think that happened with John Fox in the Bears. He had 1 year with Mitchell Trubisky. They moved on.
It's happened 3 straight times for Chicago, right? They've had 3 consecutive head coaches that have been fired the first year of the new rookie, I think.
Did Fields have?
Pretty sure I saw that stat.
He had Nagy and then on to Eberflus. Yeah, so they waited again, and then is that a lost year because it's a new offensive system and everything?
Or
Jared Goff
quarterback they drafted coach killer.
That could be it too. Jared Goff had Jeff Fisher. That was also tenuous at the time. They got rid of him. So look, by year 2, I use Goff a lot because he had an awful rookie season. Caleb has not had an awful rookie season.
Right.
But by year 2, Goff was completely different. Sean McVay completely turned things around by preseason of his second year. So we'll see what happens with Caleb Williams. You brought up last night, is this what could bring Ben Johnson from Detroit
That would be fascinating.
to Chicago, right? In that loaded division with, the moldable clay that is Caleb Williams and his skill set.
Well, so it's almost like one other stat I saw that I thought was pretty funny. The Bears are apparently the first team since the 1955 Eagles to have a positive points differential through 12 games with 4 or fewer wins.
I mean,
again, it's kind of like an Eberflus stat.
They're the inverse of the Chiefs, who we'll talk about in a few minutes. That's the Chiefs have a the worst
Right.
point differential for an 11-1 team, 10+ win team. So it is the inverse of the Chiefs.
Well,
I don't know how much because in the Chiefs' case, Mahomes and Andy Reid have a track record, so you don't call it luck. You're like, oh, they just do this. But if they weren't involved, you would absolutely call it luck. So from the Bears' perspective, are you calling this bad luck or bad coaching?
Well, it's like, do you look at this and say, this is a phenomenal situation for a head coach? And Ben Johnson is the kind of case study here because he's pointedly turned down head coaching jobs in the last couple of years to stay in Detroit, either because he's extremely unusual, if not unique in the modern era of, I like being an offensive coordinator. I'm happy here. I'm getting paid a lot of money. I'm in a good situation. I don't need the stress, Either he's in that spot or he's simply like, every gig I've actually been offered, I feel like it's kind of a crappy job. I'm going to wait for a better one. Is the Bears a really good job because they have Caleb Williams, who looks incredibly talented, because they have receivers? The foundations here are good. They have a positive points differential despite only 4 wins. That sort of suggests the underlying things here are actually quite good. Or is it a bad job because the Bears are just this franchise that for years now have been a mess? Like, it's just not – it's one of these franchises where no matter what they do, it just all turns to crap. Like, they have the opposite of the Midas touch, right? So do you look at this as Ben Johnson as like, no, this is a great job to get? Or do you look at this and say, institutionally, this is just a bad place?
Feels like we need a full autopsy on the Bears soon. By the way, interim offensive coordinator Thomas Brown has become the interim head coach.
What a couple of weeks for him.
Yeah.
He goes from...
He's going to own the team within weeks.
Just shooting up the ladder, right? Offensive coordinator, head coach. He'll be owner next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I just said. It's true. All right, we got to get to the rest of anything else here. We got more Thanksgiving fun to talk about.
No.
The turkey nap game. Did you take a turkey nap? You didn't because you had a spatchcock chicken.
I did.
27-20, the Dallas Cowboys get the win. First win at home, 5-7 Cowboys over the 2-10 New York Giants. Drew Lock did end up getting the start over Cutlets. Cooper Rush finishes with 195 passing yards and a touchdown. Rico Dowdle with 112 yards on the ground for Dallas.
Yeah, and that was, I guess, one of the biggest parts of this game was Dallas's run game showed up. Rico Dowdle. I mean, the Giants' defense was making Rico Dowdle look like an absolute superstar running back. He broke 6 tackles in the game, according to PFF, averaged 5 yards per attempt, 4.36 of which came after contact. Ended up being a very costly game for the Giants as well because Dexter Lawrence went down with what was termed at the time a popped elbow.
Yeah. They lost 3 defensive tackles during this game, which led to some of the rushing success for Dallas. Perhaps the play of the game, DeMarvion Overshone with the right pass rush, tips the pass up to himself for a pick 6. Really great play. I know some people loved Overshone during draft time. I think he's one of the league leaders in missed tackles. He's one of those active linebackers who makes a lot of flash plays but is also out of position. But like this is the high ends that you get from an Overshone. Outstanding play by him.
His sort of highlight plays, his splash plays are spectacular. I mean, he's got incredible speed and athleticism. When he makes those plays, they are incredible to watch. That was an amazing play. I mean, he actually gets his hand in the lane, tips it up, and manages to relocate the ball, grab it, and take it in for a touchdown. A phenomenal play and really kind of set the game going in Dallas's direction properly. I mean, they were the better side anyway, but they were still playing badly in a bunch of ways. Like, CeeDee Lamb just kept dropping crossing routes. Like, he had a bunch of these. He ended up with 3 drops, I think, in the game. Like, for a guy that could or should be one of the top receivers in football, this is an awful game from him. And so Dallas weren't really, capitalizing on the fact that they should have been comfortably the better side until that play really gave them some breathing room.
The other thing I wanted to highlight was the Dallas pass rush, maybe for the first time this year, maybe because they finally had a lead or a little bit of a lead they could tee off. This was the old Cowboys pass rush. Micah Parsons with 8 pressures, 3 sacks. Osa Odigizua getting in there. Carl Lawson had a couple really nice rushes off the edge opposite Micah Parsons. They were getting after it, but this was the first time we had seen Parsons really unleash in a game this season, I would say, at least, as far as sacking the quarterback goes.
Well, the Dallas defense generally, other than the fact that they were switching off for Drew Lock run plays, there were a couple of Drew Lock runs in there where they just didn't bother accounting for him. But outside of that, they did a pretty good job shutting down what the Giants were bringing on offense.
Yeah, so their pass rush dominated up front against the Giants. Again, we're gonna have to go through some of these games a lot quicker. This will be one of them. So Cowboys get the win. They move to 5-7. Second straight game. They actually put some points on the board, 27-plus points in back-to-back games for the first time this season, including that pick six. And didn't check on Skip Bayless, but I'm sure he was very excited for a Cooper Rush home victory.
Micah Parsons in the turkey leg interview afterwards, he's like, we're coming. Don't sleep on the Cowboys. It's time.
Well, they get the Simpsons game next week against the Bengals.
Yeah.
We get the Simpsons Monday night game.
Well, that's like otherwise known as the disappointment bowl, right? Like they both 5-7?
No. Bengals don't even have 5 wins.
They don't even have 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
As disappointing as the Cowboys have been, they have one more win than the Bengals right now.
Either way, two teams that were supposed to be contending are
Monday
technically, mathematically still alive, but not really.
ESPN was thrilled to get that Monday night game coming into the season.
Yeah.
And not so much right now. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the Cowboys can go on a little run here. By the way, as a quick aside, I like how the NFL honors John Madden during Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
They do a great job talking turducken, doing flashback stuff, and just, I think, conveying the passion that Madden had for Thanksgiving, but for football generally, but like connecting it to the holiday.
I always wonder whether that resonates harder with us just because we're old. Like, does an 18-year-old watching Thanksgiving football, does he even know who Madden is outside of the football game, the computer game? But also, like, does any of this
Why are you celebrating this video game
right,
guy?
But does any of that land when they're showing old clips of Madden rooting through a turducken or whatever with his hands?
No, that's how life always is. It's always the older generation that appreciates the nostalgia.
The better things.
Like 2% of the younger generation is like, that's kind of cool, some history. Yeah. All right, I got no more use for that game. Third game of the triple header, Green Bay Packers 30, Miami Dolphins 17. Packers move to 9-3 on the season. Dolphins fall to 5-7. As we talked about a little bit coming into this game, Miami, big test, the cold, but really going up against a good team again as their offense was cooking. Just slow start for Miami. I know they started to move the ball in the second half a little bit, tried to creep back into it, but it was 27-3 at one point, and it was just too much to overcome.
It was a cold game. Why did we even bother watching?
Why did we
We knew the outcome.
I mean, a lot of the cold game narrative is built around Tua, but it was like Miami just forgot how to pass protect. I mean, everything that they were doing early on was awful, including their tackling. 23 missed tackles. That's the second most by any team in a game this season. Yeah,
I mean, I think it is reasonable to say they don't appear to be particularly well constructed to win cold games. Is
it because they're so reliant on speed?
Yeah.
And the cold, I mean, it slows you down.
I don't want to call them a finesse team
grass.
because I don't think they are a finesse team. But when you do rely on speed and timing, cold is something that can affect that. Like, it's not, the timing is a little bit off because the ball's not coming out the same because, things are slightly different in conditions. So I don't think it helps. Also, I mean, they muffed a punt almost immediately in this game. Like,
because it was cold.
Because it was cold. So they just, right, this was like a narrative bowl, right? Everyone, they can't win in the cold. Look, it's cold. Write it off. And then almost immediately they muff a punt. They set Green Bay up. And you're like, this is just not, it's not helping the narrative, right? If you're trying to combat this and say, it's all just small sample size or it's all crap, right? Immediately they reinforce everything that everybody already thought. And like Tua individually didn't play particularly badly in this game. I forget where the question came from, but somebody was asking us, okay, Miami didn't answer any questions, but did Tua individually sort of answer a concern about, cold weather games? And Tua didn't play badly, but like the team collectively didn't play well.
He was still, I mean, look, I am impressed by Tua overall. I'm so impressed by what he's done within that system and everything. I made the point last week, was it New England, the previous game, where he had those 4 completions that like just missed a fingertip. So he's making these fine, tight window throws. But I thought early on that was what he was missing. I mean, the open throws that he just hits in his sleep against the Raiders, against the Patriots, against the lesser teams, the lesser defenses, and generally at home, the ones that he hits with incredible timing and anticipation, he's missing a little bit. And look, it's easier to throw the ball in the South, in Miami. It's easier generally, not in a dome, but in their, friendly confines at Hard Rock. So it's a little more difficult. Now, eventually, again, I thought the second half he threw the ball a little bit better. Again, they moved the ball, didn't put a ton of points on the board, but I don't know. They still have the question about road games, good teams, and overcoming that.
Yeah, I mean, their offensive line, I think this is the thing, right? All heading into the season, we were just about ready to say, okay, the Shanahan schemes are simply able to overcome bad offensive lines. I don't know how. It's witchcraft, but somehow it's working. And this year, it's not for any of them. Okay, San Francisco have been down a lot of bodies, but like Houston's offensive line has been a problem for that team all season long. Miami's offensive line is not good on paper, and it wasn't good in this game. And even their good players, like Teron Armstead, is actually remarkably intact at this point in the season for him. He's usually on the injury report, 17 different separate injuries at this stage. He's out there relatively healthy, and guys are just blowing past him for sacks. So the offensive line didn't pass protect particularly well, didn't run block at all in this game. Miami's run game averaged 2.8 yards per attempt. This is an offense that needs to be able to run the ball to have the kind of success that we know them having when they're playing well. A guy like Devon Achane averaging 2 yards per attempt.
Right.
The offense is not going to fire when that happens.
And the opposite, the Packers, couple big runs in there. Chris Brooks, Emmanuel Wilson. I know Jacobs didn't get a ton going, but again, a lot of missed tackles up front from Miami. So credit Green Bay, man. I mean, the other part about Green Bay is just their defense is much better than it was last year at this time. They're a better rounded team. I think coming out of every Green Bay game reminds me a little bit of the Vrabel Titans. Remember the Vrabel Titans? I'd be like, hey, it's Danico Autry this week. It was like a new player every week that would step up. Green Bay has that ability, right? 2 weeks ago, Josh Jacobs, unstoppable. I thought this was one of the cleanest games for Jordan Love. Throw for throw, hit one of the deep balls to Christian Watson in there. A really nice, his first touchdown pinpoint in the tight red zone. They schemed up a touchdown for Jaden Reed. Again, I think that's just a well-oiled all-around machine that the Packers have right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Packers are looking very good. I will say the other thing about Miami's offense, and this is not a new thing, but there's always been these cycles of like have the league figured out Mike McDaniel's offense and what they want to do, and if you just take away the middle of the field, or actually almost the reverse, if you funnel everything into the middle of the field and just collapse in on it with bodies.
Yeah.
So you know what the largest number of targets an outside corner for Green Bay had in this game was?
Not many.
2.
Wow.
Target leaders in coverage. Linebacker Isaiah McDuffie with 14. 14 targets for a linebacker in this game. Linebacker Quay Walker with 7. Slot corner Keyshawn Nixon with 6. Linebacker Eric Wilson with 4. Defensive end linebacker pass rusher, edge rusher Kingsley Enagbare with 3. Evan Williams safety.
3?
Yeah.
Wow.
You got to go like multiple other players, and then you get to outside corners. They did it. They funnel everything inside. They say, okay, cool. You want to do that. We are happy to defend that. And at no point did Miami counter that with, well, what if we played outside and took a shot down the field, or what if we just?
They had that last year, right?
It's happened every year.
They still wanted to attack the middle, but they had the deep shot to Tyreek Hill, the deep shot to Jalen Waddle.
There's no counterpunch in this offense at the moment. Teams are like, okay, you want to target the middle of the field? We know how to stop that now. Go nuts. And Miami is not adjusting.
Green Bay in third place at 9-3.
Yeah.
In the loaded NFC North. Impressive win by the Packers. Anything else?
Nope.
About the Thanksgiving
onward
night game? Well, onward, we're going to tell you about our friends over at Circa. We're thrilled to be sponsored by our friends at Circa Resort and Casino out in Vegas, one of the premier destinations for sports fans going to Las Vegas. We'll be there for the finale of the season, Sam. So we're going to be broadcasting from Circa. We started our season there, but we're also going to be going for Week 18 to broadcast our review show from there. We're going to check out Stadium Swim, which is amazing, best place to watch games. And the Legacy Club, had never been to the Legacy Club till we were there in August. It is quite awesome at the top of Circa. The views and everything outstanding. Includes some of the the whole view of the Strip. We were hanging out there by the fire and everything in
Call
August.
it the best view in Vegas, right?
It's absolutely
pretty spectacular.
It is the best view in Vegas. So we'll have more on this in the coming weeks because there'll be chances to, maybe meet and greet in the area if you're going to be there. You should come join us. Week 18, Raiders Chargers in town that weekend. So we're going to spend the weekend over at Circa later this year.
Really exciting. That place
is,
you're right. That place is spectacular. Honestly, if you are a sports fan, if you're in Vegas and want to see that place, the sports book is absolutely insane. The stadium swim thing is insane. That place at the top is incredible view. The steakhouse in the bottom. And, of course, the single best thing about the entire casino, showers that will change your life.
Man, we talked to some of the people in charge there. And they said, and that was one of the first things they asked. They said, "How good are the showers?" We said, "Yes." I mean, the height of the shower, the water pressure. It's like they went all out to make this thing as good as it could be.
I mean,
you could tell.
There are people that have clearly stayed at hotels before and are like, "What's the most disappointing thing about this place? Crappy shower."
Yeah,
it's like not in my house. We're gonna go hard at the make an awesome shower, and they have.
Can't say enough good things about Circa. So come join us over at Circa. You can sign up. There's a link in the description here, circalasvegas.com. It's circalasvegas.com/huddle up at Overhang, but you'll see the link in the description. Choose the Los Angeles weekend in the date drop down and join us there, week 18 over at Circa. All right, let's get to the Black Friday game. Kansas City Chiefs 19, Las Vegas Raiders 17. Chiefs move to 11-1. Raiders to 2-10. We've talked a lot about bad clock management, and I don't know if this is just clock management as much as it's just a straight-up mishap by the Raiders, but they were in field goal range for the game winner. Snap early, fumble, Chiefs recover for the win.
There was an image somewhere that had Chicago and the Raiders, just like a picture of where they were on the field about to snap the ball. It was like neither of these teams attempted or scored a field goal from this point, right? Like they're both there in field goal range, deep into field goal range. Like neither one of them even got a shot at kicking to win the game.
The Chiefs are now 2-0 in games in which the opposing team was in field goal range down less than 3.
It's nuts.
So the Broncos and Raiders were both in game-winning field goal range, and the Chiefs are 2-0 in such games.
It was fascinating. The broadcast it was Amazon doing this game, right? So the standard sort of Amazon crew is there, and that features Tony Gonzalez, former Kansas City Chiefs legend, and then Ryan Fitzpatrick, who has been sort of Mr. Skepticism about the Chiefs, given their insane close games, like the fact that they keep threatening to lose these games and then not. Fitzpatrick has been kind of sounding the alarm, being like, I don't know how repeatable this is, even for a team that keeps repeating it. I think there's some concerns for this Kansas City team. And he actually said, I don't even think they're going to make the AFC Championship game this year. Not only are they not going to win the three-peat, they're not even going to make it to the championship game. Whereas certainly Tony Gonzalez and maybe some of the other guys in the crew, I forget exactly who was where, were like, no, it's the Chiefs. This is just, good teams win close games, right? But it's like, this is not a repeatable skill. It just isn't. Whatever about the Broncos game, and you can give them credit for being like, okay, they dialed up a special teams play and ran over the blocker. They at least made that play, however unrepeatable and improbable it was. This one they didn't even make. Like, the Raiders just goofed. There was some kind of screw up in communication. The ball got snapped when it wasn't supposed to, and they fell on a live ball. Like, this was not even they found a play. The play was simply given to them whilst the Raiders were about to score and win the game.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the Chiefs, I think both things are true. I mean, let's not forget they lost, 6 games? Well, 5 games with Mahomes last year. And it was talked about as the worst Mahomes team of all time. I think it was just the worst offense that Mahomes had run of all time.
Worst offense, best defense.
It was the best defense, so nothing felt comfortable. They got smoked by the Raiders, who weren't great on Christmas Day last year. Remember, the Chiefs had some awful losses last year, and then they turned it on in the playoffs. So I think both things are true. Like, the Chiefs do not deserve to be 11-1. They don't. If they do this in next year's regular season, I don't think they go 11-1 in their first 12 games, with an average margin of victory of 3. I don't think that's going to happen, right? Now, does that have any bearing on this year's playoffs? Also, I don't think so, because last year's Chiefs team, I mean, we were writing them off like, oh, it's just not their year. Baltimore's better. Buffalo's better. The NFC's got some loaded teams, the Lions, the Niners. And the Chiefs just like, it's almost like laser focus in the playoffs. And even though Mahomes has been very inconsistent this year, usually in the fourth quarter, he's coming back to make the plays. And what's interesting to me is in this game, I thought, he missed multiple opportunities to seal this game. Mahomes, much like he did against the Broncos, missed a wide open Travis Kelce in the end zone, and they still couldn't capitalize, right? You still have field goal issues. So, I mean, I'm not saying Mahomes is playing horribly, but the Chiefs are winning despite, him not playing his best and him missing some opportunities. I also thought he made, several good throws in this game that didn't get caught. But
it's a fascinating test for what, because remember, the thing about last season is they were able to turn it on in the playoffs, right? The concern about last season's Chiefs, I think, was fair. Like this was not a good offense for the majority of the year. But once they hit the postseason, Travis Kelce turned back into Travis Kelce. Mahomes was at his best. Rashee Rice really became the force that he became late in the year. Like the team either rounded into form or everybody simply flipped the switch and said, it's real now, let's go. Either way, they were different in the postseason than they were in the regular season. Was that what they do now? Like they've kind of gotten bored with the regular season. It's like, it doesn't really matter. We just get through to the playoffs and then we play, right? Or was that simply coincidental timing that when things started to round into form right around the time they needed it to, and that's where they went on their run? If it's the latter, we might have problems. If it's the former, if they're actually able to do that now, they're so experienced with this that once they hit January, they can just go, okay, now we're doing it for real, then we might just see the three-peat.
I mean, there's also this element of they're seeing every team's best.
Sure.
I mean, this is like the Raiders Super Bowl here on Thanksgiving weekend. This is their biggest game. This was the Panthers' biggest game last week when the Panthers almost beat them. It is almost like the Chiefs, though, are calibrated to win by 3 against everybody.
They have
against good teams and bad teams. I know that they lost to the Bills. Like I tweeted this out the other day, and all Bills fans were like, "No, they lost a game." I'm like, "Yeah, I understand that." But the Chiefs they've played up against teams like the Ravens. They've played really well. The Bills game literally came down to 1 4th and 2 Josh Allen superhuman play. If he doesn't make that play, they might end up losing. Like it was really close, right? They are calibrated to play these 3-point games this year, play up to their competition and down to their competition. From a Raiders perspective, though, I kept thinking that they were cooked, right? They're massive underdogs, 10.5-point underdogs going into this game. And as I said on the preview show, I was like, they need to chuck it down the field. And here's where the Chiefs feel uncomfortable if you're a Chiefs fan, maybe going into the playoffs. Can they three-peat? Their pass defense, banged up a little bit in the secondary, and they've given up some big plays. Trey Tucker, 58-yard touchdown. Brock Bowers, uncoverable, including a 33-yard touchdown in there. So you have Aiden O'Connell throwing for 340 yards, including some big chunk plays. Now, again, you crack down and you only give up 17 points if you're the Chiefs, but those big plays, that was what the Raiders needed to actually be in the game at the end.
Yeah, I mean, not just the pass defense. I think the defense overall is a bigger concern.
Yeah, the Raiders ran the ball a little bit.
Yes, that was the thing. Like the Raiders were able to run the ball in this game pretty well, in addition to all that passing yardage they have. So that to me is an area of concern relative to a year ago that's different. This is not last year's Chiefs defense. Like last year's Chiefs defense was arguably the best in the NFL. It was up there with Baltimore, with Cleveland. It was really, really good, and it was situationally good, and it was very good in individual game plans. It isn't that good this year. And like I sort of flagged that as a concern heading into this game, not specific to the Raiders, but just generally, this defense is not as good as it was a year ago. So if the offense is going to be as problematic as it was a year ago, the bones, the underlying skeleton, the foundation of this team is potentially rockier than it was last year. And I think we saw that in the Raiders game. Like, Sincere McCormick is running the ball well against this defense.
Looking dynamic.
Yeah, the Raiders are hanging in. The defense is not making the plays. And this team right now really is relying on Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes, and even then only on 3rd and 4th down, essentially. Like, yeah. Patrick Mahomes, generally, he's got like a top 10 PFF grade as a quarterback this season, and then is the best quarterback in the NFL on 3rd and 4th down, is essentially what's happening. He's got the second highest grade in the NFL on 3rd and 4th down, and a lot more snaps than the guy that's ahead of him. And in totality is like borderline top 10. That's what's happening, is they kind of muddle their way through, and then in the highest leverage plays, Mahomes is able to be Mahomes repeatedly. It's just that's harder against the best teams.
One last thing to highlight here, too. Mahomes sacked 5 times in this game. Was it 5 last week against the Panthers
back-to-back
as well?
5 sack games.
That against 2 bad pass rushes. And so in the Raiders game in particular, so here's what I want to highlight. Left tackle has been a disaster for Kansas City. This mirrors last year as well when Wanye Morris, who was a 3rd-round rookie last year, had to come in. He was getting whooped. It was a specific weakness. Juwan Taylor had a lot of penalties last year. But once they put Donovan Smith back in, the veteran, and he was slightly above average, the offense changed. Wanye Morris, Kingsley Suamataia, neither guy is going to be the guy down the stretch. They've signed DJ Humphries.
They benched Wanye Morris in this game in favor of a left guard.
Yeah, they moved Joe Tooney out to left tackle. So what they signed DJ Humphries, who's recovering from injury, 10-year veteran. I think they're gearing him up to play
100%
down the stretch. He's a good pass protector when he's healthy, and if he's half decent, I think this offense changes, because there's 2 or 3 plays a game right now that are what was the phrase I've been using? Non-competitive.
Yeah.
Non-competitive. Mahomes doesn't have a chance. He's getting sacked right off the jump. That's been 3-4 weeks in a row the Chiefs have tried to overcome that.
It did appear that Patrick Mahomes at one point came to the sideline essentially saying, "Get him the hell out of there." And then they got him the hell out of there. And they kicked Joe Tooney, left guard, out to left tackle, and were playing somebody else inside. Like, that's how badly they thought that dynamic was going. That's a huge thing. I think you're absolutely right. DJ Humphries is going to end up being their left tackle down the stretch and into the playoffs. That's potentially this is a thing, right? That's a potential huge upgrade from a personnel standpoint that's there waiting for the Chiefs to implement at some point. DJ Humphries is a pretty good left tackle.
Also makes you right, finally.
Yeah, I was just early. I thought this was going to happen in September. I was like, there's no way they're rolling into the season with that concern at left tackle. They did, but in part because DJ Humphries was not ready to roll by September. Like, it's taken him this time to get back from that ACL.
It's actually a good example of the creep back toward average thing. It's one whole. It's the creep back toward average doesn't mean literally you need to have average players across the board. It means don't have massive weaknesses, and left tackle in pass protection has been a massive weakness for the Chiefs.
But this is like, okay, the Connor Williams thing didn't work out that well because he then upped and retired, but both those guys were sort of veteran, high-quality offensive linemen that were coming off serious injuries that took a little bit longer than being ready to roll, for week 1. If the Chiefs are able to hit, mid-December, even into January, and then suddenly deploy a huge upgrade at left tackle, that can change the whole dynamic. I mean, Mahomes generally does not get sacked, and he's been sacked 5 times in back-to-back games. That's a huge concern for them. The other thing we need to at least touch on a little bit more than we did in this game, I think Brock Bowers right now is Rookie of the Year. We've been obsessing over the quarterbacks, right? It's Jaden Daniels. No, look, Bo Nix is coming up on the rail. Now it's a 2-horse race. Brock Bowers right now is record-breaking at tight end. He is the only significant passing weapon that the Raiders have, and they don't have a quarterback, and he's still breaking records. Like, he's Rookie of the Year right now unless one of these quarterbacks gets themselves back on track and then stops having any kind of average game.
I think that's fair, man, because the word value is not in there. So we don't have to just look at quarterback over tight end.
Correct.
He is Brock Bowers is as advertised. And again, going back to the draft, the Raiders were left without a quarterback, musical chairs. 6 quarterbacks were drafted ahead of them, so they get Brock Bowers. It didn't feel great because they didn't have a quarterback, but as I said on draft night, I believe, I said, fast forward a year, you'll feel good about Bowers. I thought they would have Devontae Adams still. They don't.
Right.
Jacoby Myers, though, is still a pretty good 2. It's not a bad starting point for the next quarterback, whether it's drafted or whether it's Aaron Rodgers coming to the Raiders. So whoever it might be, Bowers, 10 catches for 140 yards, including that 33-yard touchdown, wins all over the field. He has been absolutely outstanding.
He's absolutely incredible right now. I mean, he is the best. I would say he's the best performing rookie by a distance. And the only thing that even makes it a conversation is the idea that, well, it's harder to play quarterback at this level. So I think absolutely, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, 100% in the conversation. And Jaden Daniels in particular, I think, had the lead for the majority of the season. But Bowers has been incredible week on week on week. And, people were talking about Bucky Irving coming out of the games yesterday. And I think Bucky Irving's having a great season. But Bucky Irving is not comparable to Brock Bowers. I mean, we can, it's like, oh, Bucky Irving should be in the conversation. I mean, if it is, it's who else can we mention whilst we're giving the award to Brock Bowers?
That's a recency bias thing, right? That's because Bucky the last 5 or 6 weeks probably been outstanding.
Right.
But workload-wise, Bowers has been good since the jump.
Yes. Bowers has been the best tight end in the NFL as a rookie and is putting up insane numbers in an offense that doesn't actually have a quarterback. So Brock Bowers, Rookie of the Year.
Nice for Travis Kelce to just see what a great tight end looks like up close and personal in the Black Friday game. All right, anything else?
Nope.
We on to Sunday?
Yep.
Let's talk Jets. I mean Seahawks.
Wow.
Seahawks 26, Jets 21. Seahawks move to 7-5, still sole possession of first place in the NFC West. Jets fall to 3-9, and they just discovered different ways of winning. Losing.
Yeah. I feel like this game, I said this on the instant reaction show last night, I think this game just highlighted the fragility of this team right now, that things were going well. I mean, they were coming off a bye, right? It was like they had not figured it out, but this was the best performance the Jets had maybe all season long for a while, right? Things were going well. They were moving the ball. Rodgers was out there leading by example. He's throwing a block on a reverse to, receivers that hadn't been used that much. And it's like, okay, we've been talking about his leadership, right? And is he actually doing a good job of leading this team? That was leadership. It was leading by example. You can argue it was a stupid example because a 40-year-old quarterback probably shouldn't be lead blocking. But he's out there. He's doing it, right? And everything's going well. The Jets are up big. They then have a chance to go up even bigger. They have a Garrett Wilson, toast the guy. This is an example, actually, of the things you say the Jets don't do. It looks, ostensibly, if you're just going to zoom in enough, like just a one-on-one double move from Garrett Wilson. But it's actually, they faked an exchange, like a crossing pattern of the receivers.
They had one well-designed pass play.
Exactly. One well-designed concept in the red zone where they faked an exchange release, and they actually didn't do it. It confused the defensive backs, and Garrett Wilson is wide open one-on-one or on the outside. Rodgers misses him. I think blamed the wind for that play. People were saying that. I didn't hear that myself. Either way, he didn't make. Who
blames the wind?
Rodgers. This is I think that's a real thing. The TV, the way you hear all the time, like the TV you don't understand how rainy it is right now. Like the TV is not showing the magnitude of the rain. TV doesn't show the wind either. Like the ball will move a lot in serious wind. I don't know whether or not that happened in this play. I will, however, say that if you're watching from a couch, you basically don't see the wind at all, and yet it will move the ball significantly if it catches it.
I mean, I would take it a step further, and I've said this before. Baseball has ballpark factors, easier to hit in this place versus that place, and that's a lot of because of the shape of the stadium, but also how the ball carries. I do believe there might be something to the reason why the Bears have such futile passing records historically.
Yeah, it's because the Windy City.
It's difficult to throw in Chicago, in Cleveland, perhaps in MetLife. Perhaps Eli Manning was better than we thought. Like his stats should have been better because I don't know. There is something to that. Now that doesn't mean maybe Green Bay is actually not bad to throw in. I don't know because there's you'll never really get to the bottom of it because there's confounding factors. Like Green Bay's had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, right, for the big chunk of time.
Yeah.
Is it easy to throw in New England because Tom Brady was there, or is it actually difficult and Tom Brady overcame it? I don't know, but I do believe all that stuff is a factor. And there's a chance that throwing in that stadium.
Agreed. Like, I don't want to labor the point on this play because I don't think it really matters. But
I just did.
Yeah. It's a fair point to make, even if it wasn't necessarily the reason that this throw fell incomplete. Like, wind is a thing, right? So everyone out there dismissing it as, it's ridiculous he blamed the wind. Like, if the wind caught it and the wind could easily be the reason this throw was missed. Whether or not it was.
That's supposed to be the home field advantage, though. It was knowing those things.
Whether or not the wind actually took this ball, the point is they missed the throw. Instead of going up 28-7, the very next play, Rodgers throws a pick six to Leonard Williams, the defensive tackle. And suddenly we have a 14-point swing in Seattle's favor versus the Jets. And from that point on, it was like everything that had gone well just crumbled. Like the whole thing fell apart. And the Jets just did no longer believe that things were fixed. It's like, it's happening again. We're dead and buried. Here goes the season. You know what I mean? That's how fragile the Jets were, is that it looked like they had it fixed, and then boom, two plays. One play and then followed up by another play, and it's all gone.
The thing is, what the Jets had fixed, though, Seattle turning the ball over early on. 2 fumbles, including a kickoff, right? So
cartoon special teams. Like
yes.
Laviska Shenault on consecutive kick returns had what looked like a joke of a muff/fumble, where it was like, woo. It looked like the holy roller play, where they're deliberately spooning along the ground, except he was just trying to get hold of it. He did it consecutively, lost one of them. They also, they had another one earlier. D. Williams fumbled the ball on a kick return, and the Jets had housed the kick return themselves. So on 4 returns, the Seahawks had fumbled it 3 times and given up a kickoff return touchdown themselves.
In a game, so the Jets had a kickoff return for a touchdown, as you say, and they started 2 drives in Seattle territory, and they only scored 21 points in this game. They had so they had 1 good drive, basically, the Jets. And then what I was talking about, we'll talk Seattle in a second here, what I was talking about as far as the easy buttons just not on for the Jets, Aaron Rodgers has this history of fourth quarter comebacks that just aren't successful relative to other great quarterbacks. Like, he's not even in the same ballpark as Brady, Mahomes, Peyton Manning when you look at fourth quarter comebacks as a percentage, winning percentage. And there's just something off. Like, he's throwing, that's where it's like, the best throw. It's like, let's just run 4 verts and just throw back shoulders and tight window Malachi Corley just missed throws. I mean, what is going on? He doesn't pick the right throws. He doesn't pick the right options in those situations. And you saw it again here. And then I also want to credit Seattle because, man, I think the majority of their secondary played really well in this game.
Well, the play where he missed the touchdown to Garrett Wilson, I think, was an example of, look, they did actually dial up they schemed somebody open. Now, the guy got open, but they also schemed it open. That was a good play call, play design, route concept, in addition to good receiver who can run routes, and that's how you get 7 yards of separation in the end zone in, close up to the line of scrimmage. That's an offense working the way it's supposed to, right? Scheme and talented playmaker working in concert equals ton of separation. However, you then get the classic Jets play that's been the case all season long, where it's like 4th and 2, let's take a one-on-one shot to Devontae Adams 20 yards down the field. It's like it got there, but and Adams sort of made the catch, but it then came.
But that's the point. It's a good throw, but it's a low percentage, so he doesn't finish it. Then there's Malachi Corley up the sideline. It's a just miss because he's shorter than Adams. Right? I mean, it's like everything is a low percentage when they need chunk plays.
Yeah.
Except the one play that they schemed up this season that they missed that you highlighted.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you had one time where it worked well, but then they're still relying too many times on it's 4th down, let's take a low percentage play that's going to require something special to work out, and it didn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, Seattle hung tough. They are playing, I keep using the word fearless for Geno. I mean, his ability to bounce back from disappointment, I think, is just outstanding. They had an awful goal line performance where they had, I think it was 3 failed plays, then a penalty to give them 1st and goal from the 1. They still didn't get in. 4th and 1, Geno Smith takes a 15-yard sack on 4th and 1. I mean, Seattle did a lot of things to try to let the Jets win this game, but they also end up coming back and make the huge plays. They have a 4th and 1 defensive pass interference. I saw the Jets were complaining about a lot of penalties. They had, I think I have the stat from Rich Cimini. They've now given up first downs on penalty 5 times this year on 4th down. That's including roughing kickers and various things like that. That's best in the NFL, worst in the NFL since 2000. But there's another 4th and 1 where there's a horse collar on the Jets. But there's a 4th and 6 where Geno Smith rolls out, hits Jackson Smith and Jigba down the field. I mean, Geno did make some big plays in here. And the Jets also set a record by losing to two of their former quarterbacks this year now, in Sam Darnold and Geno Smith. And it was like in this game, everybody who used to play for the New York teams, the Jets and the Giants, had a monster game. Julian Love's flying around making plays. Leonard Williams had the pick six plus 2 sacks in this game. And Geno Smith with some big-time throws down the field.
Leonard Williams was, again, incredible in this game. Had the sacks, including one that was critical late on, the pick six. Like, he played incredibly well. Was a game wrecker. I mean, he's playing now like the player we speculated he might play within this defense earlier in the offseason when they hired Mike McDonald. We were like, think about what Leonard Williams could do with that versatility in this specific defense. It's taken half a year to get really cooking, but certainly the last few weeks, Leonard Williams has looked absolutely amazing.
Highest grade of his career, and we're 10 years in. He was drafted in 2015.
I mean, this is the defense to unlock Leonard Williams, and it's happening. Did you see Geno Smith's social media post?
I did.
Trolling the Jets, essentially.
I did.
Rough week for the Jets, but yeah, Seattle looked good again. That defense was very good. Jackson Smith and Jigba is really coming on as well. Like, some of their most important players, just from an on-paper standpoint, are starting to play their best football in recent weeks, and that's a huge development for them in a division where it's wide open and Arizona loses, San Francisco loses. Like, great week for Seattle, not just because they got a win, but also because everyone else didn't.
They also feel like, look, I mean, this game could have gone either way. But Seattle rounding in form. We talked about shoring up their linebacking group and finding their footing now that they're not injured up front as far as the defensive line goes, reshaping the linebackers. Their secondary, when Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon and Julian Love, when all those guys are out there, it is difficult to move the ball on them.
But you're also right. Like, this would have been a ridiculous game to lose because it was so special teams based. It was one of those games where you're like, all your special teams needs to do is not be an absolute calamity and the reason you lose a game. If they had lost this game off the back of giving up a kick return touchdown and turning the ball over twice on kick returns, trying to do it a third time, but actually keeping the ball, we would have been like, that's ridiculous. They were the better team,
right,
and they lost because of cartoon special teams. Instead, they overcame the cartoon special teams, which is good because theoretically they were the much better side in this game.
Anything else on this one?
No.
3-9 Jets.
Yeah, not good.
With Aaron Rodgers.
I also think, again, I mean, Rodgers is individually responsible for the 2 highest leverage plays in this game in terms of going away from them. However, on a down-to-down basis, he was, again, not terrible. Like,
I don't think he was good in this one.
I don't think he was good. I'm not saying he was good.
They were handed field position, and they can't put points on the board.
He wasn't good, and yet the
offense scored
58
points, including a 27-yard drive.
He wasn't good, and yet he was 58 times better than Kirk Cousins was this week, and is not the problem. Was he a problem in this game? Yes, because he should have scored a touchdown, shouldn't have thrown a pick six.
Kirk Cousins' offense scored 1 fewer point than Rodgers.
Right, but Rodgers was significantly better, and that's the problem, is that overall things are not going well for the Jets. But because Rodgers is Rodgers, and he talks like an idiot, and he tends to throw other people under the bus sometimes, he gets all of the blame. And he's not individually responsible for every bad thing that happens. He has been an upgrade at quarterback for the Jets, even if the stats are the same as Zach Wilson. That's the problem, is that everything else is rotten.
All right, let's go to the next game. Got no more use for this one. Minnesota Vikings 23, Arizona Cardinals 22. Vikings move to 10-2. Cardinals fall to 6-6. Cardinals were doing their thing early on, hanging tough. They were up 9-6 at the half. They get up 19-6 deep into the second half, late into the third quarter, but the Vikings kept fighting back, man. Sam Darnold finds Johnny Munt for a touchdown to get it to 19-13, field goal to make it 19-16, and then when they're down 6, we'll talk about that in a second here, Vikings with the game-winning touchdown, Darnold to Aaron Jones with $1:18 left in the game.
Yeah, Aaron Jones' redemption arc, having been the guy that fumbled it away early.
Fumble and a dropped touchdown, if you want to call that a drop. Probably one of Sam Darnold's best throws of the game, wheel route to Aaron Jones that he was unable to haul in.
And he had been essentially, punishment benched after the fumble. Like they'd taken him out and they were running Cam Akers and Chandler in there instead. And
lesson learned.
just in case you were clear, don't fumble the ball. That's bad. Which is a shame because, I mean, Cam Akers, I thought, actually played pretty well. But like Aaron Jones is a dynamic running back, and they are significantly better when he's in the lineup. So it's funny because like it's a difficult call as a coach. Do you make the point? You know, you can't. Fumbling is unacceptable. You can't do that. Sit down. Or do you accept that, like, but he's your best player as a running back. You kind of need him in the lineup. Like, you're making yourself voluntarily worse by sitting him down on the sideline to make the point that fumbling is not acceptable, which, to be honest, he already knows. It's not like that's new information to him, right? So it's interesting that whole call. They did make that call. They had Cam Akers and Ty Chandler in there. Jones comes back, ends up being a guy to make that play late on. This turnover stuff for Minnesota is a problem, though. Like, they are one of the most turnover-prone offenses in football for a team that otherwise shouldn't be. I mean, they've got so many talented playmakers. They're able to move the ball extremely well. They've got an incredibly aggressive and good defense, and yet they're making a lot of games very close because they keep turning the ball over, often in critical situations, like the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I thought kept this close. I mean, I think
not just close, but like put them in a hole.
Put them in a massive hole. I mean, Arizona, I was breaking down Kyler against the blitz. I mean, it was like night and day what he was doing against Minnesota. Kyler had a couple throws early on where I was like, oh, maybe he's feeling it. Maybe he's feeling it. There's also this had another weird just miss on a back shoulder to Marvin Harrison Jr. They still have just a couple misses in their connection that seem curious. Like, they could be so much better because to me, that's Arizona's games when those guys are on, when Trey McBride is on. But Kyler Murray, when he wasn't blitzed in this game, 15 of 19 for 156. When he was blitzed, 3 turnover-worthy plays, just 16 of 26 for 104 yards, including 2 picks.
I think this was a really good game to illustrate how hard it is to be good against the Brian Flores defense. Kyler Murray made a lot of really good plays. He also made a lot of mistakes, and it's a case of, like, where does the balance fall there? And then the other thing is, like, the Arizona receivers made an incredible amount of just really good contested catches, like Vikings DBs with hands all over the football at the catch point, and those guys are still bringing in the catch. Michael Wilson had a couple. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a couple. Trey McBride had a couple. Like, that defense is forcing you to not just find the right place to go with the ball versus the blitz and versus the creative look up front, but then at the catch point, they're going to challenge as well and make it like you got to catch the ball cleanly and well and be strong through the catch point. They make it so hard to complete passes against them.
Everything was difficult in this game.
And at some point all you need to do is to move the margins a little bit. So then instead of, an offense averaging 65% completion rate, you just move it 10% the other way, and you end up winning the game because of that.
Another game I was so impressed with Sam Darnold. I mean, again, man, in the game-winning drive, I know it was like a little inconsistent early on, but the whole fourth quarter, Sam Darnold. And then we have talked about Jonathan Gannon, his fingerprints on this Arizona defense. And it was kind of, I think, Flores-like in how Arizona attacked Darnold in the fourth quarter, especially on that final drive. They would sit back in coverage and then send the house. Sit back in coverage and then send the house. It was like we used to talk about the Vikings last year when it was send 3, send 6. It was this extreme where you could have too much time and then you have no time. And it's like pitching with, changing speeds as a pitcher. And Darnold is standing in there, throw after throw, 4th and 5, hits a stick route to Justin Jefferson just as he's about to get hit. Other passes just as he's about to get hit, and he hits the big dig route. I think you talk about Kevin O'Connell and what he's been able to do with Darnold. They run that deep dig route, and I checked it a couple weeks ago. Darnold had the most yards on, your 15 to 25 yard in cuts. Did it again on the final drive, pinpoint, hits a beautiful deep out to Jordan Addison around coverage. I mean, it feels like there's a good mix of difficult throws that Darnold is putting on point in this offense. And then when you get into the red zone, all year, it feels like there's a lot of open throws in the tight red zone inside the 5, inside the 10. But Darnold also showing patience to get there, patience to get out the ball out to Johnny Munt, who's wide open. I thought the scheme to get Aaron Jones running across the formation for the game winner was outstanding. It is just a very good combination of Darnold running the offense, then using Justin Jefferson to open things up, and then on a 4th and 5, giving him an opportunity to be the guy that gets the conversion, and then Darnold making big-time throws into tight windows and putting them where they need to be, even when he's getting hit. Just so impressed with the whole offense, but also Darnold specifically running the show.
Yeah, I mean, I said heading into this game, this might be the best coached matchup in the NFL game, this season, this week, whatever. You've got Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores from Minnesota, both doing a really high-level job. And then you've got what Arizona is doing on both sides of the ball. And for all the credit that we gave Brian Flores' defense, I mean, this Arizona defense did an incredible job as well. Okay, on some plays, they got out-coached or out-called by Kevin O'Connell for specific plays. But, they effectively had the same volume of pressure as Minnesota's defense did without any of the talent, without any of the individual players that can win those one-on-one matchups. And they had the sacks that the Vikings weren't able to get. Now, a large part of that is the difference between Sam Darnold and Kyler Murray in terms of elusiveness. But to get sacks, that number of sacks against the Minnesota offense, given the play caller that they had, given Sam Darnold playing at a high level, given the options that they've got to get rid of the football, amazing job by that Arizona defense again, which has been a consistent theme throughout this year. And then, the offense was able to get some stuff done. They just didn't have enough.
Last thing, I mentioned this last night. I talk a lot about fourth quarter comebacks for quarterbacks, and I think that's like a skill and that's a style over time. I do think Kevin O'Connell's the first coach that I've looked at and said, is this a coach that's actually good in these situations? Because he was the first guy to really unlock Kirk Cousins. As fluky as the 2022 Vikings were, had all those fourth quarter comebacks, and was it KOC that unlocked Cousins, a style in those fourth quarter comebacks. He's doing it with Sam Darnold as well in a situation like this, where it's a little bit of scheming it up and it's a little bit of kind of turning the knobs on aggressiveness the right way. And it feels like O'Connell's offenses have been doing that, since 2022.
Yeah, and again, Kirk Cousins, the narrative changed on him. Remember earlier in his career, it was primetime Kirk Cousins melts down, right? Under the pressure, under the spotlight, under the lights, Cousins is terrible. And then that changed. And actually, primetime Kirk Cousins has been better than regular Kirk Cousins for the last several years, which kind of coincides with the Kevin O'Connell era as well. And there's definitely a degree to which Kevin O'Connell rewired Kirk Cousins, the way he approached the game. And, we always joked that late in the game, Kirk Cousins used to play like his stats were on the line rather than the game was on the line, right? What will give me a better passer rating? Oh, it's the dump off to the running back who gains 8 in this 3rd and 15 situation, which isn't really helping. I don't think that was actually what was going on in his head, but it's the way it was manifesting. And Kevin O'Connell changed that and actually got him playing what actually improved, what gets us the bigger win percentage here, not the best stats, right? And that had an effect. And he does appear to be working that magic on Sam Darnold as well. And this is why he's a really good coach.
Yeah, I think he's – and then you have the ballpark factors. Sam Darnold goes from throwing the ball where Aaron Rodgers is, right? You go from that ballpark, stadium.
Very little wind in the dome.
Right, to a dome. That is a factor as well. But, yeah, just very impressed with Sam Darnold.
And then quickly, the late game scenario where –
oh, yeah. Greg Olsen highlighted very
Vikings are making their comeback. Arizona's up 3. They get into the red zone. They had a bad play. I forget what it was, but then they get most of it back on 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20. It's now 4th and 5, 4th and goal from the 5. And it's the classic situation, the analytics play. Do we go for it on 4th and goal from the 5, or do we kick the field goal, go up 6, which actually might be a bad thing? And Greg Olsen on commentary, he literally said, all right, I'm going to take a minute and run you through this, and broke it down, explained exactly why going up by 6 is not necessarily a good thing for the offense, because it means the opposing team has to play for a touchdown the entire way. They're more aggressive, which tends to result in better outputs, better performances. And actually, if they do get the touchdown, you lose the game because, as opposed to playing for the tie, where it's still theoretically like a 50-50 proposition if you get to overtime. And this was like the perfect case study of that actually playing out exactly the way the analytics would say, because the Vikings were aggressive. They did convert on a 4th and 7 on that drive. They did get the touchdown, and then they ended up winning the game because of it.
It's a double whammy, too, because if you score, when you're up 3 and you score a touchdown,
that's basically over.
Right, you ends the game.
Right.
You have the ability to end the game on offense. If you fail, the other team's playing for a tie, and you still have a chance to win. And if you succeed, well, you could give up a touchdown and completely lose the game. So credit Greg Olsen. You highlighted that. I saw Lindsey Rhodes tweeted that out and kind of highlighted great job by Greg Olsen. That is outstanding. That is the opposite of what we've heard in past years from other analysts who are like, I don't know why they're doing this. All Greg Olsen has done is taking the time to understand the why behind a whole lot of scenarios. And then his superpower is the biggest challenge for any color commentator is to take a complicated concept and convey it in a matter of seconds. And he does that as well as anybody.
I mean, I saw somebody tweeting that it shouldn't be notable that he's done that. Like, that should be a basic requirement for every color commentator to be able to explain this counterintuitive thing that you're seeing, right? Going for it on 4th and goal instead of kicking a field goal and going up 2 field goals is actually smart, and here's why. That should be a basic job requirement for that position, right? And yet it is notable because Greg Olsen is basically the only guy out there doing it. Chris Collinsworth, our former boss, occasionally does it, and he's pretty good at that stuff. There are other guys out there that will still act like that's idiocy, and that's an egregious failing of their job.
Completely
honestly.
agree. Yeah, it's your job to know and be like, I don't know why they're doing this. You should know why they're doing it.
Imagine the scoffing that would take place on that play during Monday Night Football with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, right? Like, they'd be going, the analytics say go for it. I don't know if I agree with this play. You're like, come on.
Wonder if Michael Lombardi agreed with taking the points. He's a big take the points guy.
Yeah.
Should ask Michael what he thinks. So I just want to shout out to Greg Olsen. Greg, we're trying to get you on the show here to talk about it if you're going to come join us on the show. Trying to get Greg here. All right, we got more games to discuss. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Harry's. Sometimes you need a no-brainer gift that no one will want to swap out, like a solid shaving set, man. Right now, you can get 50% off Harry's holiday craft set with a custom green gift box and a free handle engraving. Perfect for that one guy who's impossible to shop for, especially if that guy's you. So we've had a great experience with Harry in their.
I've had extensive experience
with Harry's shaving.
Shaved the whole head.
Look how smooth that is.
Right, and this is like 24 hours later.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love the foaming shave gel was outstanding. Love all of that, and the entire holiday craft set. It comes with one craft handle, your choice of the foaming shave gel or the regular shave cream, 2 extra blades, and a travel blade cover. No gift wrapping required. The set comes in a rich, sleek green gift box that will stand out, personalized with available engraving options. It's a risk-free purchase. Harry's offers a 100% money-back guarantee. If you order by December 12th, you will receive the holiday craft set by Christmas. So look as cleanly shaven.
Look as bald as me.
As Sam. Look as bald as Sam all over your head.
You want to take care of that pesky hair? Harry's.
Harry's is the one. Get 50% off Harry's holiday craft set, a custom green gift box, and free handle engraving when you go to harrys.com/checkthemic. That's harrys.com/checkthemic for 50% off Harry's holiday craft set. I think you're a great endorsement for this, but I don't want to.
It's unclear.
It is unclear, but we're going to roll with it.
Yeah.
So go check it out right now. harrys.com/checkthemic.
All I know is this beard is being grown back as soon as humanly possible.
Indianapolis Colts 25, New England Patriots 24. Colts move to 6-7. Patriots fall to 3-10. We called it a sneaky good game on the preview show. Ends up coming down to the last play of the game. Anthony Richardson and the Colts go for 2. So they're down 7. They get the touchdown to get within 1, and they make the call to go for 2 for the win. Anthony Richardson on the keeper to get the 2-point conversion and the 1-point win for the Colts.
Ballsy call. We talked about this a little bit on the reaction show last night as well. On that sequence, like that series, down by the goal line, the Patriots defense had held 3 consecutive plays. They'd done a really good job. It was like, actually, we're going to have a goal line defensive stand. That's how we win this game. They had held Then the Colts finally get it on the 4th down, right? And decide to, like, they sort of threw out the first 3 plays. They're like, look, trust the numbers, trust the process. We have a pretty good chance of converting the 1 play we need to win the game. We're going to go for 2. I think a lot of coaches would have let that first sequence play into their decision and been like, nah, man, we're 3-1 down, 3-1 down in this series, right? Defense has won 3 times. We won the 4th time. We're losing. There's no way we're going to convert the 2-point play. Instead, they're like, no, Richardson, 2 points, it's money. Let's call the play.
I don't know if I want to talk about both sides here, but Anthony Richardson in this game, the stats will not look great again. Second straight week, though, his best throws falling incomplete. He finishes 12 of 24 for 109 yards. First run on PFF right now has him with 3 big-time throws. Kind of agree with all of them. A.D. Mitchell has a bomb that goes through his hands. Marcus Jones may have gotten his hand in there to help break it up. Beautiful seam route. Kylan Grayson is unable to haul it in. I mean, over the last 4 big-time throws per PFF for Anthony Richardson have all been incomplete. And so he's
him and Bryce Young, just every good throw they make is dropped. Or not
really?
complete.
I mean, you're trying to explain. I mean, this is our job a little bit. Trying to explain why the 4.5 yards per attempt stat line. I mean, that he probably adds 80 yards to that just by a couple catches. I mean,
it's
honestly,
annoying.
over 100 yards if all 3 of them are caught.
This is one of those things where, like, okay, we can debate the efficacy or not of PFF grades in broad macro terms, but like this is where it's really important because you post any one of these plays, right? And you're going to get a ton of people that would reply, that happens to every quarterback in the NFL. And it does. The important thing is how often, right? So when Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young, like when you can create this low light reel of plays where they keep going throw after throw after throw, incomplete, drop, whatever. The other quarterbacks don't have that reel. They have some of those plays, but the number is important, right? And right now,
But that's like posting a touchdown for a quarterback and saying, well, every quarterback throws touchdowns. Yes, but some guys have 30 and some
Right.
guys have 15.
but this is where
It's a
PFF
counting
is
issue.
important because it's counting up every single one of those plays and throwing it into a grade or a number for you, right? And you're not doing that if you're just pulling out the videos and saying, look, here's a similar misplay for X quarterback, right? Right now, Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson are having a disproportionate volume of good plays come up incomplete.
Yeah, so completely agree there. First watch, I do believe. I'm watching Richardson. There's some misplays in there as well, and everything.
Yeah.
It's just his big time throws, which is going to be a big part of his game, right? His ability to flip the field with his arm. His big time throws are falling incomplete right now. That's not showing up in the stats. First time he's played and started and finished 3 straight games. Like there's progress happening with Anthony Richardson's game right now, and then you add in 4th down. Game on the line. He is accurate for the 7-yard touchdown to Alec Pierce. And then he's got this skill set. He has this goal line skill set, even though, to your point, they had been stopped on the goal line several times. They have this ability. QB sweeps. This was power. QB, keeper right up the middle for Anthony Richardson. And, he turns it into the 2-point conversion and the win. So that skill set continues to play. And I believe he's throwing the ball much better since his benching, since his return. Anthony Richardson, throw for throw, far better than he was before that.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, continue to be incredibly impressed by Drake May. I thought, was it 2 weeks ago was the Rams game? Was probably his best game. This may have been Drake May's best game. A fluky, weird interception on the goal line. And that's, if you're a New England fan, hoping for at least a win here and there in the Drake May era, other than just being optimistic about him. A fluky interception off of Hunter Henry at the goal line. That was the only blip on the stat sheet, really, for May. He goes 24 for 30 and has another 59 yards running the ball, including a 41-yarder.
Yes, continues to be a ridiculous rushing threat. And I feel like this is a comparison that will upset people if they don't think about it.
Don't do it.
But for a long time, it felt like teams simply did not appreciate or respect the rushing threat that Daniel Jones brought to the table because he doesn't look like Lamar Jackson, right? So it's like, he's probably not a big rushing threat. But then he takes off and makes these incredible plays. Like the dude is for real running the ball. Drake May, I think, is in the same category. Like, we are, for some reason, continually letting him just gash defenses in a way that is fixable. Like, this is not he's weaving through 5 defenders and making people miss, and it's like, okay, there's no call for that. Like, we can call defenses that account for this, and we're not at the moment. And yet, he's now like a live threat to break Michael Vick's single-season yards per carry record. Like, he's rattling off some absurd
a big
rushing clip.
A big part of that is he never has to kneel the ball because they're never winning at the end. That helps the
it's going to help.
That helps the average. No, I think May's pocket movement, because the Patriots offensive line is still bad, and his pocket movement helps to protect them a little bit, because a lot of times pocket movement hurts the offensive line. His has been helping the offensive line, and I think he's got a good combination generally of quick release, pocket movement, but also because of the scrambling ability, could slow down the pass rush a little bit, just like when you're facing Jaden Daniels, who I think is a better scrambler than Drake May, but you have to account for him as a pass rusher, respect your pass rush lanes, and you can't, go all out going for the quarterback. So I think that aspect of May's game has been outstanding, and, still very impressed by what he's bringing to the table with just a subpar group of pass blockers and pass catchers.
Yep.
Run game for New England was much better, though. Antonio Gibson with a really good game. This is the best they've run the ball probably in quite a while, but still not enough, falling 1 point short in the Brady Manning matchup here.
And now we have to have the first kicking conversation of the weekend, because Joey Sly has now missed 5 kicks this season, and they've all been from 30 yards or in.
That what?
He's missed 5 kicks.
Oh yeah,
this
he did
season,
miss an easy
and
one.
every single one.
He
of
missed
them
the 68-yard.
has been. Oh yeah, before that.
Before
the 68-yard, which we'll get to. But he had missed up until that point. He had missed 5 kicks this season, every single one of which had been from within 30 yards.
Yeah.
Remember my theory that he was the most jacked kicker in the NFL?
Yeah.
I think the problem is
too jacked.
Too jacked for the short kicks, right? There's too much power in that leg, right? So you obviously uncorked that for a 68-yard attempt late in the game, which I actually think was a reasonable. I think that was a reasonable call. Like, the Patriots have the ball after the Colts score, go for 2, get the lead.
Yep.
The Patriots now have a little bit of time to answer, and they take a couple of shots over the middle just to try and move the ball a little bit, and you think, oh, they're just getting into an easier Hail Mary range, but actually they were teeing up a 68-yard attempt, and I think that's actually a 68-yard attempt in today's NFL probably has a better success chance than a Hail Mary.
It was almost Mahomesian, man. I thought May had they had 12 seconds.
Yeah.
He had a quick hitter to Hunter Henry, quick release, Hunter Henry up the seam. If he could haul that in, because they had 2 timeouts, then they went 11 yards to Henry, 9 yards to Henry. They got those couple passes over the middle, call timeout quickly. They did set it up as well as you could, but yeah, 68 yards.
But I think
in the cold outdoors is going to be difficult. But
right, that's the thing that made it tough, is that it's outdoor, non-great conditions.
That was the right move, though.
But yeah, I do think that a 68-yard field goal attempt in today's NFL probably has a better chance of coming off than a Hail Mary attempt, generally, statistically. And he was on line. Like, he didn't miss wide. He missed short by like a yard.
Yeah.
So the most jacked kicker in the NFL still didn't quite have enough leg for 68 yards.
Sad.
And unfortunately, that ruins
Justin Tucker, maybe.
Right. And unfortunately, that ruins his run of missing everything from within 30 yards.
Yeah. Patriots, from one perspective, Patriots finding ways to lose, Colts saving their season with a bold move, and maybe definitely staying afloat as far as
the wild card goes. Both teams headed to a bye next week. All right, let's go. Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Texans get the win 23-20. Trevor Lawrence did end up making the start for the Jags, of course, unfortunately knocked out of the game by Azeez Al-Shire. And I want to talk about that hit in a minute here. But the Texans, they get the win. Joe Mixon with another 101 yards on the ground, sealed the deal at the end. Mac Jones and the Jags did make a bit of a comeback. They did make it interesting toward the end. It was 23-6 Texans. Jags score a couple touchdowns, get the 2-point conversion, one of the 2-point conversions to get within 3. But the Texans hold on to move to 8-5. Jags now 2-10. Yeah, much closer game than it felt like it should have been. Like, the Texans just refused to take control of this game, even when everything was going in their direction. I posted earlier in the season that given some of the misses or some of the incompletions, at this point, Brian Thomas was actually being let down by Trevor Lawrence relative to what he should be doing, given how good he's looked.
Mac Jones missed him on a wide open bomb.
But Trevor Lawrence missed him. Like the interception from Trevor Lawrence was a wide open. Brian Thomas was 5 yards. Yeah. Brian Thomas was multiple yards behind Derek Stingley, and it was a wildly underthrown ball, and what should have been a bomb touchdown ends up being an interception. Like, that's the kind of play, and this trend of Trevor Lawrence in his career of being a tick late to things, Brian Thomas is wide open on that play, and not only does he not get him, but it's an interception because Stingley's really good at those plays. So massive high leverage play where Brian Thomas could have had a huge boost to his production, which is still solid, like 4 catches or 76 yards.
And Mac Jones missed him even more open
later
on.
So I think that's true. Like Brian Thomas, not only has he been as good as his production been good, and he's been good overall. His production should have been a lot better than it's been because his quarterbacks haven't been getting him the ball on some of his biggest plays.
Lawrence looked rusty late, and it felt like he was throwing a whole bunch into coverage early on. And then he takes the hit by Alshire. That was, I think, one of the biggest cheap shots I've seen in the NFL in a long, long time.
Yeah, I think people are too quick generally to label things cheap or dirty, whereas really, like, a lot of hits, particularly from players in the secondary, it's like they're not trying to hurt somebody. It's just bad timing or sloppy technique, or it's a bad play rather than a dirty or a deliberately cheap play. This was the first one in a long time where I think it was deliberately dirty. I don't know if he meant to injure Trevor Lawrence, but I actually felt like he meant to hurt him. Like, this was a play where it felt like the linebacker had a quarterback lined up, a quarterback who was coming into this game with a bad shoulder, non-throwing shoulder, but bad shoulder, like had an injury he was dealing with coming into this game, and it felt like Alshire thought, I have a chance to lay a hit on this quarterback now, and I'm going to take it, regardless of whether he's sliding or not. Like, maybe I can get away with it. Maybe it's close enough that I'll get the benefit of the doubt, but I have a shot, and I'm taking it. And he took it, and it concusses. Like, immediately, Lawrence's head bounces off the turf, fencing response, and we're out.
I mean, the head bouncing back, anytime, it doesn't matter where you hit the quarterback. Oh, he hit him in the chest, or he hit him in the head. It doesn't matter. You're hitting him at high force, and the issue is the head bouncing back. I mean, it's just awful. Like, he's going to get suspended, maybe multiple games. That looked,
and he should,
and I think he should, right? Because, I mean, people talk about, oh, you're protecting Mahomes and you're protecting the QBs and this and that. And I do think some quarterbacks are taking advantage of these rules. I think they go out of bounds at the very last possible second to maximize yardage. I think they slide late. This was not an example of that, but I do think quarterbacks have done that. But you can't incentivize the next time somebody has a shot at Mahomes or Allen or whoever else, if it's just like, 1 game suspension and 15-yard, like, they're going to take that opportunity. You have to not incentivize defenders to make this hit again.
This is a hit that has been taken out of the game. Like, it's
I know,
such a big deal.
This was rare. That's what stood out.
Right. It's such a big deal because it's been a long time since we've seen a hit like this. You go back to like the 90s or the 80s, this was every week. I mean, Joe Montana took one of these a game, but they're gone, right? And this is part of the thing. Like, the NFL has successfully changed the game in a variety of different ways, and there are this idea, well, what a defender's supposed to do? You can't, how are we supposed to play defense, right? The same bullshit would have been said when they took this hit out of the game, right? How are we supposed to play defense? Quarterback's coming right at me in the open field. What am I supposed to do? Just lay up? Yes, you are supposed to just lay up.
Especially on a slide.
And he will slide.
You're not saving any yards.
Right.
As soon as he hits the ground, the play's over.
But that's the point, right? You are able to successfully change behavior of defenders if you simply eradicate certain hits from the game. The NFL has done that with this hit, and that's why it's such a big deal. But in this world of the sort of behavior-changing culture of the NFL, we change behavior with fines and maybe suspensions when people are taking the piss egregiously, right? If you're fining guys like 5 digits for like a marginal face mask call after the fact, or even suspending somebody because we've had a couple of hits that were not of this type, but were of the, this is a pattern of behavior, you're sloppy, whatever, change your behavior now. This needs to be more than all of that because it's a flagrant. It is that one where it looked deliberate, where it looked like he took a genuine shot at the guy that he knew he shouldn't be doing, at which point the punishment for this needs to be greater than the punishment for all of those other things.
Yes.
It needs to be greater than just a random fine. It needs to be greater than you've had a repeated number of marginal but bad hits, but none of them were necessarily deliberate like this. It needs to be greater than all of those things, which means I think it should be multiple games. I wouldn't have a problem with suspending him for the rest of the season and saying this is an unacceptable hit in today's NFL. You know that. The only thing I would disagree with, I saw Scott Pioli saying that they need to start suspending players for the same amount of time that the player they hurt is out for, which I just think is the bad way of doing things. Like, you can't have the length of the suspension determined by the random amount of time a player is injured by.
No, that's the same thing as, sometimes like the harder a hit looks, the worse it's more likely to get a penalty, even if it's not as bad. It's because you have more power to your game, you're actually more likely to get a penalty.
Or the guy that you're hitting is just...
Or they're frail.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So like the same hit on Tua versus Josh Allen is likely to cause more damage to Tua. That shouldn't increase your suspension. Yeah, it's the same hit.
Again, the only thing what I don't want, and I hate the way we watch the game now, there are clean hits that are bang, bang. We're like, that's a penalty. It's like, nope, that is a clean, perfectly fine hit. There are plays where the quarterback slides late and the guy's like tripping over him and he knees him in the head. Those shouldn't be penalties. This was clearly intentional. And, even D'Amico Ryans is like, hey, he wasn't making excuses for this. He's like, this isn't what we do and not what we encourage and how we coach ball.
And as our producer Ben Allen in the chat says, there's also the chance that Lawrence clears protocol, and if you're suspending him for the same amount of time that he's out, he's not out at all. And so you don't get any suspension.
The worse the concussion looks, I don't think that affects the recovery on it just because
either way, tying it to the amount of time the guy you hit is out, I just don't think is a good way of doing things. So
just to
suspend him for a longer period of time than you suspend other people for just a random hit, but don't determine it by things like that.
Just to put a bow on this game, it is a fascinating experience watching the Texans defense this year. Again, I highlighted on the preview show how many deep balls, just off the top of my head, I feel like QBs have missed. You can add Brian Thomas Jr., the interception. You can add Brian Thomas Jr., the miss by Mac Jones that he overthrew instead of underthrew. It feels like the Texans defense just playing with fire this season when it comes to
even just those two plays. I mean, they get an interception and an incompletion on two plays that could have won the game for Jacksonville.
Like the second time, that's how Jacksonville lost the first time.
Right. If Jacksonville completes those two plays where their receiver was wide open, like that would have been probably the difference between winning and losing this game.
My guy Parker Washington with some big plays for the Jags, 103 yards on 6 catches, including a nice little out route and adjustment on for a touchdown.
For Joe Mixon, by the way, though, this was the game. I mean, this was the reason Bobby Slowick wanted Joe Mixon this game. Like, if they don't have Joe Mixon, they might not be able to run this game out, and suddenly Jacksonville has a chance to win.
That's like the third or fourth time we've said that this year. I mean, look, I'm not so simple-minded to be like, well, that's why the Bengals are losing, because they don't have Joe Mixon. But Joe Mixon has been a huge part of the Texans' offense.
Add it to the list.
Still haven't, all the running back movement. We still haven't seen this full, total Texans offense. I thought we might see it today. I mean, this week against the Jags. Stroud played a little bit cleaner than he has in recent weeks. Nico Collins, still a stud, but still left wanting a little bit more from Houston's offense. But yeah, credit Mixon and the run game and what they're able to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely make the argument that they shouldn't need to be leaning on Joe Mixon in this game, but the fact that they were able to is probably the difference between certainly them having control over the outcome versus Jacksonville. They were able to ice this game because Joe Mixon was really good late on.
All right, let's go Washington 42, Tennessee Titans 19. Commanders move to 8-5. Titans fall to 3-9. Commanders really dominated early. Quick 40-yard touchdown from Brian Robinson. Really uncontested by the Titans at the second level.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels scrambles for a 3-yard touchdown. Terry McLaurin for a 16-yard touchdown from the right side as well. They put him at right wide receiver and in the slot. A touch more.
Moved him.
A touch more in this game.
Cliff developing.
So the Commanders get up 28-0 and don't look back.
Yeah.
Not even Nick Westbrook-Akine could make the comeback for the Titans.
And what his stats are getting insane. The stat was that the Commanders had 4 straight touchdown drives when 2 of them were like set up right in the shadow of the goal line. The Titans fumble the ball. They also then fumble the next kickoff. Like, they gave them consecutive.
Dude, what's their special teams EPA? What is happening?
They gave them consecutive really short fields to score. And okay, Washington took advantage of that by scoring, but it's like, what could have been an interesting, reasonably close game, the Titans shot themselves in the foot multiple times and put it out of reach by the time it was possible to become anything. And then, Westbrook-Akine, 2 touchdowns in this game. He has a touchdown in 7 straight games, I think.
Yeah.
He has 8 touchdowns on the year and 20 receptions. That's insane. He's basically catching a touchdown almost every other pass.
Yeah, that's unsustainable, but it's fun. But it is absolutely fun. He's starting to remind me of Juwan Jennings with the Niners as like the not full afterthought, but the number 3, 4 type of wide receiver. Where you're like either give him more opportunities in a different offense, and let's be serious, he's not going to like the Titans would be the place to have opportunities.
Right.
But if you're a really good team, and he's your 3 or 4 option, could be a nice little group there. So just something to keep an eye on. He's been really good. But the touchdown regression will hit at some point. But he's been a good deep threat, and it's more confirmation bias for me because he was when I was there at training camp, really impressed by him.
Yeah,
the same way I was there when Ray Davis went for 280. When you're there and you see him, at some point they're going to have a good stretch of play, and he's confirmed it.
Yeah, no, he was good that day. You're right. He's certainly as a deep threat. He's definitely a dangerous player for them. Unfortunately, by the time their passing game got cooking, they were just buried.
Yeah, it's like 3 out of 4 games here where Tennessee hasn't. They beat Houston last week, but the other games like Minnesota, what was the game a couple weeks ago? They didn't even have a chance. They played pretty well, didn't have a chance. But like Levis, throw for throw, it's like, all right, seeing some stuff, throwing the ball down the field again. He's playing pretty well, certainly relative to earlier expectations. I don't know if it's fully to the point where, like Carolina, I believe is, rethinking, is Levis our guy going forward, but playing some much better football the last few weeks.
Yeah, I don't think it is, but yeah, this is the Will Levis that I think we should have been seeing for the entirety of the season. Like I think it would be a much more interesting and different story if he hadn't had like the first month of being a meme quarterback, right? If he just played like this all the way through, now I think the Titans would have an interesting conversation. And to be honest, probably wouldn't have traded away, DeAndre Hopkins. It would be a different Titans team if Levis had played like this from the outset.
I don't know what our friends at PFF will end up grading it, or if they'll give him a turnover-worthy play. He almost had one. Frankie Louvu hit him late, and he probably should have gotten rid of it, almost got picked. But overall, seen some good stuff from Levis. The Frankie Louvu stuff, you get Washington's pass rush. They have pressure coming from Frankie. Again, Bobby Wagner blitzed 14 times, most on the season. He was creating some havoc. So I think, Washington, against Tennessee's awful pass protection, they did some damage up front again in this one.
And Washington's run game was back. Brian Robinson back in the lineup. They needed him because Austin Eckler got put on IR after that concussion, which is an unfortunate development for him. But Brian Robinson's been running the ball really well generally this season. Jaden Daniels has that ability, that scrambling ability to just be a dynamic runner himself. Like his scrambling touchdown, that looked like a bad decision when he kept the ball. And then it was like, there's a guy right in my path. This is actually dead and buried. Yeah. And then he just like sidestepped 2 separate defenders and got into the end zone anyway. There are very few quarterbacks that are capable of making that play, and he's one of them.
Chris Rodriguez, too. It was more in garbage time for him, but I highlighted him way back in Week 9 where he had a couple key runs against the Giants to seal that game. He's running really well. He's got 8 first downs on just 27 carries this year, 8 forced missed tackles, former Kentucky running back. So I think they got some depth there to run the ball in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaden Daniels had like 90% completions at one point. Again, made me think, are the ribs healthy? Or is he healthy again? Ended up a pretty good game from him, but this looked like some of the early season Commanders offense that we were
I think definitely
raving about.
His rib injury is responsible for the sort of downtick of his play this season, and now he looks a lot more like he did earlier in the year.
Anything else here?
No.
All right, got to tell you about our friends over at GameTime. You've heard me raving about GameTime and how easy it is to get sports tickets, concert tickets, theater, whatever it might be. GameTime Picks is incredible. Filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The curation makes it easier to save money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for. Love the all-in pricing. You toggle this feature, just press a button. Shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And you get the panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what you're getting into. And GameTime has a lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. GameTime ticket coverage is awesome. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying all your tickets with GameTime. So you can do this right now. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code CheckTheMic. You get $20 off your first purchase. I think it's worth doing no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? You're gonna need tickets at some point anyway. So you download it, and you always have the promo code to use whenever you make your first purchase. So terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code CheckTheMic. You get $20 off over at GameTime. Download GameTime today. What time is it? GameTime. All right, a couple more 1 o'clock games to discuss here. Los Angeles Chargers get the win over the Atlanta Falcons. It's 17-13. Chargers move to 8-4. Falcons fall to 6-6. NFC South, Falcons still technically in first, but tied at 6-6 with the Bucs as far as record goes. Chargers get the win here on the short week. I really thought the Falcons coming off the bye, Chargers on the short week, thought it would be a factor. It wasn't really.
It might have been had Kirk Cousins not had a ton of interceptions.
I mean, that was really the difference in the game because there was a pick six in there. So the Chargers offense, they only scored the 10 points.
And they were up early. Like, it looked like I think I picked the Chargers in this game, and I was concerned that had gone to hell because Atlanta was looking good early. They were ahead, and then Kirk Cousins just melts down.
Yeah. There's a pick six in there. You highlighted, hey, there might have been a little bit of miscommunication in there, but then...
Yeah, there was definitely miscommunication in there. However, it may have also still been bad because it's 4th and 5, and that's short of the sticks. So I do think for some reason, I don't know what Mooney is doing on that play.
Opposing teams are playing short of the sticks on 4th down with Kirk Cousins.
Right. I don't know what Darnell Mooney is doing on that play. He runs this I've never seen that route before, ever. He runs like a sort of fake stop out route, right? And Kirk Cousins seemingly thinks he's going to settle down, throws to that, and Mooney carries on going, and then the corner is able to just jump in. It looks ridiculous, right? Even if he'd thrown it, if Mooney had settled where he looked like he was going to settle and Cousins had completed it, he's a yard, maybe 2 yards short of the sticks, and the corner is driving on it. He's almost certainly getting tackled short of the first down. So it's a bad decision regardless, but it's not as, it looked completely inexplicable before you saw Mooney's weird route.
And then you have, I know the game ended on an interception. That was another 4th down. You got to kind of force one, but there's a red zone interception in there from Cousins. There's a fumble in there. Just a poor game overall. And look, when younger quarterbacks have bad games, you say it's a bad game.
Yeah. When
older quarterbacks have a bad game, and they happen to have just drafted a first-round quarterback that they love, you start to question things.
And they, they're not what they used to be physically, whether that's a permanent thing or that's just this is going to take a while coming back from an Achilles injury. But Cousins doesn't look, he never looked physically imposing, but now his arm is weaker. He looks frail and sort of decrepit anyway, just as a body language thing at quarterback. When he has a bad game, it looks like this can't work. This is non-viable. Early in the season, people were like, oh, this Kirk Cousins is done. This is the worst move that's ever been made. Bench him immediately. And then he goes, 500 yards. And okay, actually Cousins can still play the game. But when he has a bad game, it looks like this is, the wheels have gone, it's done. It's last year, Dan Marino. It's time to move on, right? And yet, it might just be a bad game.
Yeah.
Against a really good pass defense.
Against a really good pass defense. And again, I think some of the decisions were just poor, though.
Yeah.
He's throwing into traffic, whatever happened on the Mooney play.
It was a bad game.
Drake London played really well. I thought had 9 catches for 86 yards. He keep it a minute. I sent this to you before. Bijan Robinson finishes with 26 carries for 102 yards. I've had a feeling maybe Atlanta was going to start pushing the workload his way a little bit more, especially as you see what Barkley's doing in Philly and what Henry's done with Baltimore. I do feel like Bijan's missing a little bit of that big play component to his game. He creates space extremely well. Would love to see him turn, and he's got like exciting 7 and 8 yard gains that I'd love to see him turn into a 20 to 30 yard gain at some point. So he ends up averaging under 4 yards a carry. I feel like there's just like an explosive element to his game, maybe that he's missing. We'll see if that comes out at any point. And then from a Chargers perspective, what did I say yesterday? They ran only 46 offensive plays. So, they get the win, defense pulls it off, but Justin Herbert sacked 5 times against one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL. And Ladd McConkey finishes with 9 catches for 117. He had 117 out of the Chargers' 147, while Herbert's 147 passing yards. Chargers also had a 3-yard J.K. Scott completion.
Fake punt.
On a stopped fake punt. I mean,
it's another thing that went Atlanta's way.
That's the thing. Like, from Atlanta's perspective, massive missed opportunities, and for the Chargers, it's like, man, just a Harbaugh game. They were really backed up on the fake punt call. And anytime there's a fake punt call, I hesitate to blame the coach because I didn't listen to the quotes or whatever. I hesitate to say, oh, that's a crazy call by Jim Harbaugh, because so many times it's an adjustment, it's a read. I don't know what ended up happening there, but that was potentially a huge swing in the game in Atlanta's favor that they could not capitalize on.
It was just well defended. It was a well defended fake punt by Atlanta, and again, a thing that broke their way, and they still weren't able to capitalize because Cousins melted down and had a disaster of a game. The pass rushing thing from Atlanta was big. Like, this is the worst pass rushing team in the NFL, and they were a big factor in this game. Multiple sacks of Justin Herbert, and the sacks represented a disproportionate volume of their pressure. It's not like they had, they were pressure everywhere. But when they did get pressure, they got sacks, and that's the most important thing. Those are the most impactful plays from the defense. That was huge and should have been a reason they won this game, but didn't because the quarterback.
It does feel like Herbert. I mean, there was points in the Charger season where it felt like Herbert was all right. He elevated his game. He had that stretch, very middle of the season where he was the highest graded PFF quarterback, and it's like, all right, he's throwing Quentin Johnston open and he's making the most of this receiving core. I just think the margin for error in this pass game is so small. If they're this dependent, I love Ladd McConkey. I'm glad he's having success. If they're this dependent on Ladd McConkey, they got to go to Kansas City next Sunday night, take on the Chiefs, try to show that they can compete with the best teams in the AFC. Haven't been able to do that yet this year. That feels like a concern here for the Chargers. But in this case, in this game, they pull it off. Another defensive battle, and they're kind of built for that.
Yeah, I mean, you need more than one viable passing option, and the Chargers don't really have one yet. But they're making it do with just the one.
Tarheeb Still was the guy with the pick six, and
who's been playing really well recently.
He has been. Big long corner in the 5th round. They're getting the most out of some of their draft picks, and it was him and Cam Hart had some success as late round corners, and Still's playing really well these last few weeks. Had the pick 6 this game.
That's one of those plays where some people still only really, like, if you're not playing man coverage, it doesn't count, right? That's a really good rep of zone coverage on that play. Like, he sort of splits the difference between the Mooney route and the Drake London route that's going to go in behind him, like a deeper out. He splits the difference on that pretty well. He's at the very minimum squeezing that lane or that throwing window to Drake London, and yet he's sitting there waiting for the underneath one to drive on it as soon as Cousins puts the ball in the air. They're not on the same page, but even if they had been, he's the guy that's going to make the tackle short of the first down. It's 4th and 5, assuming he doesn't miss a tackle, he makes a stop on for a 4-yard gain or a 3-yard gain, and we're talking about an elite defensive play in zone coverage, which is also coverage that counts.
Who doesn't like zone coverage?
Loads of people. People don't count zone coverage as coverage. It only counts if it's man-to-man.
They're dumb. I'm going to do it.
Uh-oh. What are you going to do?
Good game from number 3 on the Chargers. Derwin James. Game-sealing interception. Big plays in the run game. Flying around, making plays. Derwin James with a really good game here for the Chargers. Hope he doesn't get hurt at practice heading into the Chiefs game. So we got him and Kelsey. The him and Kelsey matchup that we always love.
That we never get.
That we never seem to get. We'll see if he survives practice for next week's Sunday night game. I think
They had
it's
that
Sunday night.
one rep where Derwin powerbombed Kelsey, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
That's their matchup career.
Again, I just want to highlight NFC South race getting close now. I thought Atlanta had a golden opportunity. They were up a lot. Now the Bucs might be in position to overtake them with their easier schedule. Anything else here?
Nope.
All right, let's go Pittsburgh Steelers. Last 1 o'clock game here. Steelers get the win 44-38 over the Cincinnati Bengals. A shootout. It's Pittsburgh's most points scored in a road game since 2000.
A lot of firsts in this game. It was the highest scoring game of the NFL this year.
Yeah.
Which means it was the best game of the NFL this year. That's how it works.
There's 2 defensive touchdowns in there, so that helps.
Right. It was the highest scoring game in this series, like Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati. Highest scoring game they've ever played against each other. Highest scoring first half that they've ever played against each other as well. 45 points in the first half, the most in the series history. This is not a series that doesn't get played very often. They've played each other. This is 110th time they've met, and this is the highest scoring game that's ever been between the two teams.
Yeah, there was a lot going on here. So first off, let's just start with the quarterbacks. Almost an identical stat line with as far as certain stats, with Russell Wilson having about 100 more passing yards. But Russ was 29 of 38. Joe Burrow was 28 for 38. Burrow they both threw for 3 touchdowns. Both had 1 pick. Russ just had 414 passing yards to Joe Burrow's 309. But the game starts with Cam Taylor-Britt with a pick 6 for the Bengals. As you mentioned last night, we were shocked that the play, stood.
So I think this game was badly officiated, not necessarily in one direction, but was just a bunch of crappy calls / no calls. This was the first of them, where it's the most obvious, DB wide receiver mugging you're ever going to see in your life. Like, the two of them engage. Cam Taylor-Britt tosses Pickens to the floor using the back of his helmet, and therefore is the guy standing there when the pass is thrown as opposed to being contested, and walks his way into the end zone. And the official is just like, yeah, okay, cool. That seems fair. What? I mean, it couldn't be clearer.
It was like the T. Higgins just grabbed Jalen Ramsey and threw him out of the way for the 75-yard touchdown in the Super Bowl. So, I don't know. This game was wild. I don't want to take anything away from Russ. I thought he played extremely well. And I also think this is like the 3rd time this year I've said this is one of the worst defensive performances of the season by the Bengals defense.
Yeah.
When they needed to make a big stop, I forget who it was, where they passed, whoever the corner was, maybe Newton, was just passing Van Jefferson off to air. Right? And credit Russ. I mean, he played very well in this game. But a 43-yarder to Van Jefferson. When the Bengals needed a stop, because Burrow did it again, man. I continue to believe he's underrated. I know he got strip sacked and that became a touchdown, but the pass protection was awful. I talked about the stat line looking identical similar as far as Burrow and Russell Wilson. The pass blocking grades between the two teams were about 30 points apart, with actually maybe worse. Bengals 39, Steelers 72. So Burrow's under pressure all the time. His first touchdown, he's getting hit and jump throw touchdown. He just continues to elevate this offense despite terrible pass blocking. I know he's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but it's really those 3, man, trying to carry this thing.
Yeah.
And Steelers, though, just a much better all-around team.
I mean, this game is
up
why
front, O-line, Russ played well, run game, defensive playmakers, all of it.
This game is why Cincinnati was never likely to get themselves back in it this season and go on the kind of run that we've become accustomed to them going on late in seasons, because their defense is just garbage. It's just too bad. And even if the offense could play at this level every single week, I mean, this is a game where they're setting records of number of games where they've scored 33 plus points and lost, right? They're breaking all-time records for that. You can't go on that kind of run when that's your defense, because eventually you're going to find an offense that can keep pace with you, and now you can't win the game anymore. So that's why this was never likely to happen for Cincinnati. You want a fun stat for Russell Wilson and the Steelers?
Yes.
So Russell Wilson completed his 8th touchdown pass in this game. He then subsequently completed his 9th and his 10th. But the 8th passing touchdown gave him the most passing touchdowns in a season by a Steelers quarterback since Roethlisberger retired.
Wow.
And he retired after the 2021 season.
Wow.
That's insane. Eight passing touchdowns.
That's multiple years of Kenny Pickett and this year Justin Fields before Russ took over.
Like the record in a game is 6, right? Or is it 7? With 8 in a season. That's bad.
Yeah, that's bad.
That's bad.
I'm telling you, the ceiling's raised for that offense.
Sure.
It was also funny, too. George Pickens kept making big plays, then picking up unsportsmanlike conduct penalties.
That's going to be interesting because Tomlin said after that he needs to grow up pretty quickly.
Act like you've had a 36-yard gain before.
That's, look, it's an interesting dynamic. So somebody tweeted over the weekend. Was it you that sent it to me that every college player is just asking themselves what would George Pickens do?
Pretty much.
This
weekend was crazy.
Pickens is now the heir apparent to every sort of diva wide receiver cliche that's ever been. He's the guy now. Where it's just he's gonna. The Hail Mary where he's busy fighting Greg Newsome into the stands. He's just a lunatic at this point. And it's you are their best receiving option. You're also a wild loose cannon that's giving back 15 yards almost as often as you're gaining them with big plays. And Tomlin, a disciplinarian coach type of guy, at some point, how long can you deal with that before you're this is more hassle than it's worth? It's not, to be clear. He is worth more than the hassle that comes along with it. But the hassle is a significant negative that keeps popping up.
Guys to highlight for the Steelers: T.J. Watt, a couple sacks. Cameron Hayward had he had a sack, but a batted pass that led to Burrow's interception.
Yep.
That's the fine line in this game. And I know the Steelers kept getting up 2 scores and the Bengals coming back, and you might think, well, that's garbage time and this and that. It's not really. It's not like they're sitting there giving it up. Burrow and the Bengals just have an explosive offense. They just can't. I know the defense scored one of the touchdowns, but they could not stop Pittsburgh at all.
Yeah.
Nick Herbig did it again.
Huge game.
The strip sack, Keanu Benton creating pressure. I love Pittsburgh's defensive front, but I think even though Pittsburgh gave up a lot of points too, but that defensive front, they have the high-end plays, right? They have the strip sack. They have the batted pass for the interception. They have those plays that ended up being game changers for Pittsburgh's defense. Mm-hmm. Joey Porter Jr. had 5 penalties in this game.
Yeah, at least one of them I think was bullshit.
Yeah.
It was it's not that he, to be clear, it's not that what he was doing wasn't wildly illegal in a general context, but the ball was wild. The ball was thrown 5 yards out of the end zone. It wasn't catchable.
Yeah.
He was mugging the receiver at the time in a way that he shouldn't and didn't need to, but I think it was clearly an uncatchable pass and therefore not a. But this is what I was saying, right? There's the miss Cam Taylor-Britt interception. I think that was a bad call. There was the false start that they call an Alex Kappa when a guy had jumped in, he's reacting to the guy that jumps into the neutral zone. That should have been the other way, not false start. I think this was just a badly officiated game across the board.
Are the Bengals due an autopsy from us?
Yeah.
Maybe one more?
They're dead. They're not. This is why. They can.
If they win out and go 9-8, do they have a chance? They would need Denver to lose a bunch.
Yeah, no, I don't think they can. Number one, I don't think they can win out. Number two, I don't think even if they do, it's going to be enough.
Man, Burrow they set the record for the most losses in games they've scored 33. Was that 3 or 4 this year?
4 now.
4.
They were tied with the 85 Chargers and a couple other teams for the record with 3. Now it's 4.
Joe Burrow might be the best quarterback in the league this year.
Could
Just
be.
saying. Playing as well as any quarterback. And we talk a lot about QBs and how important they are, and the Bengals are finding ways to make that irrelevant.
He gave a very interesting kind of press conference after the game. His comments were sort of the best way of describing them. They were they were interesting to hear him talk about the pressure that he feels and how much he knows he has to be perfect right now, otherwise they have no shot. And to an extent, that just goes with the territory. But to a probably greater extent, this is an unreasonable burden to be putting on a great quarterback that should be up there where Patrick Mahomes is, where Josh Allen is, i.e. at the helm of a juggernaut and isn't because the defense is atrocious this year.
And they've been there. They've been to the AFC Championship twice, Super Bowl once. But, yeah, this is a rough season there. And then credit Pittsburgh for bouncing back from the Winter Wonderland loss to the Browns. 9-3 Steelers.
And by the way,
in command of the AFC North now.
Yes, big week for them. But in addition to the defense being terrible, like presumably they're about to at least take an axe to dismantling parts of the offense if T. Higgins leaves in the offseason, if they're not planning on paying him and then Chase. You know, the offense could be getting worse as well as the defense being bad.
I wasn't expecting the O-line to be this bad again in pass protection and the defense to be among the worst in the league this year. We'll talk about it more, though. Why are the Steelers in control in the AFC North? Well, because the Philadelphia Eagles get the win over the Ravens in the 425 game. Eagles 10-2 is 24-19. Eagles move to 10-2. Ravens fall to 9-5. It's tough to talk about this game. Like we X's and O's, and I thought this was a battle and the running back matchup and the MVP stuff. But man, how much comes down to just Justin Tucker can't
8-5
kick. What did I say?
9-5.
Yeah, they're 8-5.
I was wondering how they were 9-5. That felt like too many games for this point in the season.
It's 8-5. Says it right there.
It does, yeah.
I wouldn't have said 9-5. I can read.
No, that would be crazy talk.
Eighth straight win for the Eagles. That's also.
It's also on the screen there, yeah.
Written right there. I mean, look, just stupid kickers. Tucker.
Now we have to have our second kicker discussion.
Justin Tucker used to kick every kick square down the middle.
Yep.
Right?
And now when he tries to do that, they go wide left. So I tweeted. I was like, look.
Everything was, but like the first one that he hit, whatever it was, what was the first one that he hit? 34 yards. And it was like a little off center. And I'm like, I don't even trust his makes. I know they still count. They still count as 3. But he used to kick 55-yarders. And if it was like an inch to the right, it would be like a story. Right?
Right.
He would be good from 74 on his 55-yarder. And now it's like, it's like a little wobbly 34-yarder. Like, there might be time to just, like, this is affecting the Ravens season here.
Absolutely. I mean, he came out afterwards and said he felt responsible for the loss, and he kind of was. But I had a fix for him.
Not in your NFL.
I was like, look, everything's going left. We had that stat a couple of weeks ago, which was true. Is no longer true. Everything he'd missed had been wide left, right? Ben Stockwell gave us that stat. And I was like, look, it's simple. You're like a golfer with, just a consistent draw or a consistent fade slice. Just accept it and play for the slice, right? If I slice the ball 25 yards to the right of where I'm aiming every single time, what's the solution? Aim 25 yards left of where you're trying to hit instead of still persisting on trying to aim it right down the fairway and watching it go off wide right every single time, right? So I was like, just aim at the right upright. Aim at the right post, and you'll make it right down the middle. So it looked like he did that later in the game. That was the first time the ball just went exactly where he aimed. He's like, I'm going to aim it just to the right of the stick, and the ball went just to the right of the stick. And then he's like, oh, no. So then it was actually the make at the end where he makes it, and he's still shaking his head because it snuck in. He doesn't know anymore. Like, he's lost. At that point, he was like, I'm missing everything left. I tried to compensate. I missed right. Even the next make, it like didn't go where I was. I don't know what's wrong. Like, Justin Tucker right now, the greatest kicker of all time, is broken. And this tends to happen to every kicker, but it tends not to happen. Like, this is a very unusual situation. It either happens early in their career and they have to bounce back somewhere else, right? Because you only get a couple of weeks of this before a team's like, this is killing us. You're out of here. Or they play great and then they just lose the leg and then they just wind down. But he's now in this unique situation where he's been the best kicker of all time for a much longer period than kickers are normally able to do that. And now his leg is still there, seemingly, distance-wise, but he's gone off. So I don't know what the Ravens do because this is costing their season.
Can you hide him on the practice squad?
No, because someone's going to sign him, right? If you cut Justin Tucker today.
Does anybody want a broken Justin Tucker right now? Like, just for fear that
No.
maybe you get him in, a whole Justin Tucker next year?
I think if you have a crappy kicker right now, like San Francisco, I would say signs Justin Tucker tomorrow if he's released today. because he's such an upgrade over what they have. Like there are bad
because
kicking
the upside's
situations.
there. You have to get him back to it. We've seen people come out of this.
There are bad kicking situations in the NFL that I think would still roll the dice that the greatest kicker of all time in a new environment is able to just turn it back on again at some point. But for Baltimore, you're in this really tough spot where if Justin Tucker was any other kicker in the NFL, I think he'd already have been cut now. He would have been cut now.
Yeah.
Like this game would have done it. Justin Tucker, sorry, you're out of here. But it's not. It's the greatest kicker of all time who has consistently been the one guy that's ignored the rules of kickers, right? Like, for all anybody analyzes these things, Justin Tucker has been Derrick Henry, right? He's been the one guy to whom the rules don't generally apply, and now it's all come back and hit him in one season.
You
and
also
I genuinely think for the Ravens, it's a really difficult decision now.
He has a 50-yarder just before the half. Like, you just don't know when they're going to.
That's what I'm saying. It's
like
not
2 for 4 is bad, but you just don't know when it's like, oh, no, he's fine this week.
And specifically, it's not like, 152-year-old Morton Anderson, where it's like he's still right down the middle. It's just that the middle only extends 47 yards.
Yeah, you didn't just lose power.
Right. Yeah. So Justin Tucker can still make 50-plus yard kicks. It's just that he's no longer able to control where it goes. Like his aim is off, and he doesn't know how to fix it.
Would you ever keep 2 kickers on the roster? Have a short guy, because teams used to keep 2 kickers. They used to have a kickoff guy, right? When the kickoff was at the 30 and touchbacks were valuable, you'd have the kickoff guy with a big leg, and you'd have the field goal guy. And every now and again, the long kickoff guy would kick the 60-yarder and whatever. I value my roster spots more than that. I don't want to have any kickers, but maybe, because the upside of having Tucker, like a whole Tucker, a proper Tucker, is such a weapon.
Proper Tucker.
But
this whole conversation is why I think kicking should be banned.
Yeah, save it for Wednesday.
The idea that this doesn't happen at other positions.
It's too late. We're already in.
Why does the great kicker just stop being great overnight? It's stupid, and it shouldn't be deciding games, but it is.
Yeah, it's terrible. So anyway, it's 14-12, Eagles. The Ravens got up early, by the way. They're up 9-0.
Yeah.
Then couldn't put any points on the board. Even just the first touchdown felt like Lamar Jackson just kind of like threw it into a sea of 12 people that Mark Andrews found the ball for the 14-yard touchdown.
He beat Ed Reed Blankenship on the play.
And then Ed Reed Blankenship out with a concussion after that, missed the end of the game. And the Eagles still played pretty well. So it's 14-12 Eagles at the half. And then Saquon Barkley does it again, waits till the fourth quarter, 8 minutes left, has the 25-yard touchdown. I mean, he did it again in the fourth quarter, running the ball hard, and it felt like even after that, every time they handed him the ball, 8 yards, 7 yards, moving the chains and building that MVP case.
I don't understand why the Eagles can't score in the first quarter. They, like a lot of teams, are really good on the script, like the Vikings, right? The Vikings generally, number one, they have the most points of any team in the NFL in the first quarter. But number two, like their script is amazing. The Vikings are great on script, the Kevin O'Connell stuff. Other teams are in that world as well. The Philadelphia Eagles have the lowest amount of points scored in the first quarter of any team in the NFL. And this was another game where it's like they're not showing up in the first quarter. Baltimore's ahead. And then they got into the groove, and it's like it works. I don't understand why this team starts so slowly every week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we kind of called that the game flow. We called the first part of the game flow. Baltimore has those games where they get up, and then they just start leaning on you. But the Eagles handled it. They handled that. Yeah, I don't understand the slow starts either. Because both teams had that element of, fourth quarter ability. But the Ravens have those games where they blow out good teams because it's like they can run it, they can throw it, they can do all these different things. Eagles did it again, though. They did what the Steelers did a couple weeks ago. Everything's tight window. Everything's a little bit more difficult for Lamar Jackson. And impressive effort, again, from Fangio's defense.
Yeah, I think this game went basically exactly as I predicted it to go in the preview show. Like, these are two pretty evenly matched teams. They're very similar, but the big difference is Vic Fangio and Philadelphia's defense is just better than Baltimore's. And as the game wore on, they had more success and made it more difficult for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense. Definitely helped, I think, by Rashad Bateman going out. Whereas as the game wore on, Philadelphia's offense was able to lean on the Ravens defense. That fourth quarter, Saquon Barkley, like they had a sequence where it's like Saquon Barkley run, big gain. Jalen Hurts run, big game on the counter, like the option look where he gives it, keeps it, gives it. The next play was Saquon again. They just they were able to lean on the Ravens defense and establish that and grind them down.
I've actually been more impressed with the Ravens defense in recent weeks. Hasn't mattered in a couple games against Pittsburgh or in this one. Difference was maybe the kicker. But I've been more impressed with the Ravens defense since they traded for Tre'Davious White. Not sure if that's the exact reason, but the pass defense has been better. Only gave up 118 to Jalen Hurts. Had some big plays by A.J. Brown in there, but pass defense has been better than it was earlier in the year. So Ravens have the ingredients to bounce back from this. But that kicker. Eagles, impressive again, man. This game doesn't get the Game of the Year accolades because there wasn't as much scoring, but it had that, heavyweight battle. Like every possession mattered.
It had fewer points, therefore it wasn't as good.
Therefore it wasn't as good. But it was huge, man. Every possession mattered. Felt like both teams were in third and long a lot. And then it comes down to, hey, I want to credit Saquon. He also discredit him quick. He did fumble, right? When they're running out the clock up 9, he fumbles. And because they recovered it, and he did recover his own fumble.
Right.
Yeah. Because he recovers it, luck of the bounce, you forget about this. But that would have given the Ravens life. And again, the Ravens had the late touchdown.
Quote-unquote clutch situation for the running back, right?
It's the most important part of the game.
The late drive where you're running out the clock and you're trying to grind them down.
I hope I didn't just kick my mic out.
The worst thing you can do is to put the ball on the ground, and he did that. That would have been bad, but it's like you tried to throw the interception, but he didn't catch it, so it doesn't count. That would have been bad, but he was generally great in the game. The other thing with the Justin Tucker stuff, by the way, this was the second week in a row where Baltimore has had one of those pretty aggressive fourth down calls in their own territory, 4th and 8. Now there's 6 minutes left. You're kind of in a hole. It made sense to go for it anyway, but I do wonder, and this is not a kicking situation. You're in your own half, but I wonder how much of their fourth down aggressiveness is affected by a lack of confidence in Justin Tucker anymore.
Yeah, and you might say, why would that be if you're not even in field goal range? It's because you need touchdowns, right? You can't afford to settle for field goals.
Right.
Or at least not close field goals. You have to maximize every single possession. It wasn't as close as the one score, really. I mean, Baltimore had the onside kick late, but Lamar Jackson with a long run and then a touchdown with 3 seconds left for some
it's one of those ones
fantasy
where
stat padding.
You're down multiple scores. You end up getting one of them back, and it makes it look like it wasn't a multiple score game, even though it effectively was.
Anything else on this one?
Other than, just
another week, I want to see Eagles-Lions really badly.
It's setting up for that. I mean, Minnesota will have something to say, maybe Green Bay, but again, we are setting up for a Detroit-Philadelphia matchup in the NFC Championship game. They do look like the two best teams in the NFC.
Fair point, though. I mean, Green Bay and Minnesota are right there with them. I think
Minnesota has the same record as Philadelphia, but it doesn't seem like it when you're talking about the two teams.
The top of it's the streak that Philly's on. Right? They started slow. They've won 8 straight. The top of the NFC does look like it's going to be an awesome. Both conferences going to be a fun playoff. Are you ready? Got no more use for that game. Los Angeles Rams 21, New Orleans Saints 14. Rams move to 6-6, and the Saints fall to 4-8. Rams get all their points in the second half in this one. Weird kind of both run games were pretty effective, back and forth, body blows type of game, but the Rams actually started making some plays through the air in the second half to pull away for the win.
Yeah, they did. They started off, there was a fairly even split in the workload between Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, which has not been the case for most of this year. Like, a lot of people loved Blake Corum because he was like a Kyren Williams clone coming out of college. And then it's like, the Rams, got this nice 1-2 punch now. Only it didn't manifest that way. It's still just a one punch. And then occasionally Blake Corum would get a snap or two. It was almost an even workload early in this game. And then eventually Kyren Williams got his kind of starting job back, I guess, and got the rest of the carries. But for a while, this looked like an even split, which is sort of interesting and relatively unexplained early in the game.
Man, Kyren Williams just runs hard, dude. He had a rushing touchdown early, and then at the end, the Saints still had an opportunity to stop the Rams and maybe get the ball back, and Kyren Williams just says, first play, nope, picking up the first down, running hard, finishes with 104 yards on 15 carries. Corum did have 5.3 yards per carry. I don't know what goes into that decision. Like, all right, this week we're just getting him involved. I don't know what goes into it because Kyren has been such a workhorse.
Especially early when it was like, I mean, obviously that was sometimes late in the game, it's like, is he tired? Is he, dealing with something? Is he, cramping? Whatever. Like, there are reasons why you might suddenly start to involve the backup more as the game goes on. Also, what the score is. But this was like right off the bat, there was quite a clear, conscious decision that these guys are going to have much more split workload than they've had previously. It would be interesting to hear why that happened. All of the running backs in this game, I thought, played well. Kyren Williams was great. Blake Corum looked good in his play. Alvin Kamara played really well as well. Good. Like, all the running backs were impressive.
The other thing I wanted to highlight, Jared Verse. So the Saints had a game-winning drive opportunity. Jared Verse sealed that with a game-winning sack. Thought Derek Carr just held that ball. Took too long. Didn't really feel him. Kyren Williams finished the game with the first down run. After that, the other running back that played well in this game before getting hurt was Taysom Hill, out for the season.
Horrible injury.
But that was the QB sweep that he ran, right?
Yeah,
the
fourth and short.
Sweep.
Fourth and short. You line up Taysom Hill to convert, and he just gets this helmet to the knee while somebody else is tackling him from behind. It just crunches, and knee goes in the wrong direction. Bad.
Unfortunate for Taysom Hill because this was the year that they had finally put a lot of that together. When he was hurt in the middle, things weren't as good offensively. When he's been out there, this offense has had a lot more explosiveness to it.
And I don't know. I mean, it's a horrible, like, he's 34 at this stage because he was already pretty old when he came into the NFL. I don't know what his aging arc looks like because, I think he's just a power running back, right, is what effectively he should be. But he hasn't been that way. Like, that's not what he's been for most of his NFL career. He's
no tread on the tires.
Right, quarterback, tight end, running back, whatever. He's this, like, special teamer. I don't know what his aging decline looks like. Like, when should he start to fade or drop off? But 34 years of age with a devastating knee injury is not good at any position.
No, not good. Marquez Valdez-Scantling does it again. Finds the end zone. Another receiving touchdown. Has a 28-yarder. MVS, man.
Yeah.
Still playing well. Is it just always having – it was a 28-yard touchdown by Derek Carr. Is Derek Carr unlocking the deep threats or vice versa? You brought that up before.
Both, I think. I think Derek Carr definitely likes having that option that on any given play. A lot of them, like a lot of those plays, when you think about them, are the sort of Derek Carr has been flushed a little bit and he's running forwards and throwing. You know what I mean? Like it's an unusual way. Usually quarterbacks don't throw on the run towards the line of scrimmage deep. But Carr does that quite a lot where he's like flushed and is starting to scramble and then just sort of heaves one deep on the run in a forward motion. But he seems to love that play. And I think having that guy who generally is always going to be, at least if he's one-on-one, it's a pretty good chance he can outrun the guy. I think he likes having that capacity, the option to just put it out there and see what happens.
So another nice game from Jared Verse, who I mentioned. Did he not get a sack for that? What am I missing on the Derek Carr play? But he had 6 pressures. Kobe Turner had 5. I thought Braden Fisk had a touchdown early on. It looked like a strip sack on Derek Carr. I thought that was still a strip sack. They called it incomplete. But Braden Fisk, who crushed the combine, defensive tackle for the Rams, weaving through the defense for a negated touchdown. He's earned some offensive snaps in my team here, man. Braden Fisk.
Yeah.
Good athlete.
He's your short yardage player now?
He's something.
You just want to get him out in space, get the ball in his hands.
I think you give him, I don't know how much of a lead blocker he is, but I think you give him a few fullback reps just to set up the wheel route. Set up the wheel.
Okay.
If Michael Hoyt can drop into coverage 20 yards down the field, then Braden Fisk can run a wheel route.
All right.
So the Rams game back of the Seahawks now, tied with the Cardinals at 6-6. Niners down to last place in the NFC West.
Yeah, the only team that stopped it being a perfect weekend for Seattle.
Perfect weekend?
Well, if Seattle had won and all of the other teams in the division had lost, it would have been a perfect weekend for Seattle.
Oh, for Seattle. Oh, I get you. I understand now what you're trying to say. Anything else here?
No.
All right, good. Got to tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. The whole PFF oh, no, I did it. Check the mic. Wow. That was in my head earlier today. I check myself when we check the mic to start. That's a fine. Throw $1 in. It was in my head earlier today.
Yeah?
I'm tired. They're coming up later.
You even got branded merchandise on.
I know. I got my 33rd
up the name
team.
of your own show.
Got my 33rd team hoodie. Yeah. That's all right. We're just going to delete that. Check the Mics, brought to you by PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Stop talking to them. Stop.
What?
Don't worry about it. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash, which, we've won a bunch this year. And we'll have our lineups this Wednesday, this Thursday. You can download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code Check the Mic. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. We love playing PrizePicks every single week. We get to go through the projections. You pick more or less. It's so simple. It's also the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Join over 10 million users worldwide and sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out. If your lineup isn't perfect, you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineup stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. So download the app today. Use the code Check the Mic. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo Check the Mic, $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Wow. Just a rough stretch.
Just going to go ahead and forget what show we are, huh?
I know. That was, dude, we're in week 13, and that's the first mishap from me that I'm aware of.
Other than saying we a lot.
That's all right. That's expected. But I screwed up the record. I screwed up the Ravens record. That's just standard misspeaking by me.
Yeah.
It's a -2, though.
We need our listener.
Where's our grader?
Mike that grades us.
That's a pick 6. It's a -2.
It's a Matt Schaub.
We the 33rd team.
We might need to break the scale for that one.
Maybe it's a -3. Mm-hmm. We the 33rd team. We the 33rd team. We the 33rd team. Yeah. I'm just going to write it 100 times.
Yeah. Lions. Old
Check
school.
the Mic.
Old school punishments.
Bucks 26, Panthers 23. Bucks move to 6-6 with the overtime win against the Panthers, who fall to 3-9. Wild back and forth game. It looked like we had a Bryce Young game-winning signature touchdown drive against the Bucks, but the Bucks get back into field goal range at the very end of the game. They get a 51-yard field goal to push it to overtime. In overtime, Panthers have an opportunity. They're driving down. They're in field goal range. Fumble. Bucks drive down, kick the game-winning field goal to get the win to move to 6-6.
Yeah. Another game where we are saying Bryce Young played really well and yet did not necessarily get credited for it because they didn't end up getting the win. Like they could or should have beaten Kansas City and didn't get the win because Mahomes did what he does. Should have beaten Tampa Bay. And Baker Mayfield, who'd played like crap, to be honest, for most of the game, actually did.
Until the game, like the game tying and game winning drives. That was pretty much it. Mike Evans' touchdown early was awesome by him and Evans. Outstanding catch by Evans. But Baker did not play well.
No, I forget who was on commentary in this game. They were like, when the chips are down, that's when Baker plays his best football. I'm like, is it really? Is that a cliche that would be borne out if we looked at this statistically? I don't believe it is. But he did. And he had played badly for the majority of this game. Some ridiculous decisions with the football. And then when the game was on the line, it looked like Carolina had done it. Bryce Young had executed his game-winning drive. He'd played well all game and got the signature drive to get his W. And no, Baker had just enough time left on the clock to get down, march the Bucks down a little bit, get the game tying field goal, and then was able to get it done in overtime when they got gifted the possession again.
All right. Well, I want to talk about Bryce in a minute here. Let's start with the Bucks, though. Baker, you're right. I mean, 3 turnover-worthy plays. The last one, now it came after he got injured. Remember, he got stepped on early in the game.
Came back and immediately throw the ball away.
It looks bad, but his very first pass coming back, interception. They were down 3 at the time, and it looked like, okay, this might not work here. So Baker, I mean, how many times has he, come close to being injured? Remember how Big Ben used to always get hurt and, looked bad, and then he'd come back. Mike Evans does this a lot, injured, looks bad, you end up coming back. I mean, this one looked the worst of all the injuries we've seen. We've seen him rolled up on, we've seen back injuries, but Baker stepped on, and Kyle Trask comes in for a couple snaps, but Mayfield does come back. It was just his first pass was picked off. But even after the injury, he's still scrambling for first downs and making some plays. It was another, hate to say it, but gritty finish from Baker Mayfield here.
Yeah, I mean, credit him because he had played pretty badly. Those are 3 bad decisions, and they were a variety of bad decisions as well. The first one was the classic you don't throw late to the flat play, right?
Yeah.
Where the guy was actually wide the hell open for most of that play. And by the time Baker ended up getting to him because of the pocket breaking down and him buying time, it just gave the DB enough time to break on it and pick it off. So that was bad. The second one, I have some sympathy for Baker on. I think that one was actually a really good job of the defender basically baiting him. Like Baker thought that guy was going to follow the inside receiver, and instead he threatens like he's going to do it and then jumps back outside. Actually jumped back outside so conclusively that he actually overran the pass and couldn't, almost didn't pick it off entirely. Made it a really difficult catch for himself. But that actually, I think, was a really good defensive play. It's not great. Jordan Fuller made that play. It's not great by Baker, but it's the most excusable of the 3. And then the third one, when he came back, he throws this deep over to, was it Jalen McMillan? And there's a guy on the far side of the play who never leaves. Like you're throwing it right to him.
So this is what makes the Bucs, I think, a tough team. Mike Evans had some plays. I mean, he looked really good. Getting into a groove coming off the injury. Evans looked really good, and Bucky Irving was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
They're starting to push the workload in Bucky Irving's favor. Remember, early in the season, a lot of it was like, we're going to line him up as an H-back and give him an end around or a jet sweep, and they're giving Bucky the workload, and the guy makes people miss. Slashing running style, 152 yards on 25 carries, including a 43-yarder in there. I mean, Bucky Irving, I think, helped pick up the slack in a game where the pass game, again, Evans made some huge plays. He finished with 118 yards on 8 catches. He's still going for that 1,000 yards. If he keeps doing this, Evans can do it. But Bucky Irving was the star here for the Bucs offense.
It looked like Bucky Irving was going to be like the thing that finally, because obviously, Tampa Bay versus Carolina, the Bucs are heavily favored. They're expected to win. It's a tight game. It's a struggle. And it looked like Bucky Irving was going to be the reason that they went away and actually seal the win. Then ultimately, like, Bryce Young's able to come back and make it take the lead. But yeah, Bucky Irving looked like he was going to be the difference between the 2 teams for a while. Again, looked spectacular, ran incredibly well. I agree that we can put him in the Rookie of the Year conversation as long as it's just an honorable mention at this point. Like, Bucky Irving's been really good. Brock Bowers has been all-time record-setting good. It's a different thing.
Man, good for Bucky.
But Bucky looks great. Incredible find for Tampa Bay deep in the draft, and looks like a steal for them. So he was fantastic. The other thing, but we're back to this Bryce Young thing. Like, Bryce Young played really well and had, again, some of his best plays are not coming up with, they're not getting rewarded.
He's outstanding, man. Bryce Young, I'm not saying he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now, but I believe we've hit the tipping point where Bryce Young has played himself into being the Panthers quarterback next year.
Yeah,
this
we're
is
no
4
longer
straight games. Bryce Young is the quarterback for the Panthers next year, and I believe they can and should pivot unless he collapses.
Yes.
Right? There's still more time.
Right.
They can and should pivot from let's get a first-round quarterback to who's the best weapon for him, who's the best pass rusher. That's where the Panthers should be.
We're no longer grading him on a curve, which I think is like it's a notable step, right? When he first came back, right, and we were talking about his first kind of starts back, Denver and New Orleans, it's like he played pretty well, but it was like relative to, well, that's a lot better than it was when he got benched, right? It wasn't well in abstract terms. Like if that was Joe Burrow having that game, you wouldn't say anything. It was like, okay, that's a standard Joe Burrow game, or not even a particularly good Joe Burrow game. Now, I think he's just playing well, period. Like regardless of context, he's just playing really good football right now. And that's massive for a guy that was, the former number 1 overall pick for a reason. You're seeing Alabama, Bryce Young, and that it's huge for them. I think you're right. As long as this maintains, that's a definite thing. But like real small sample size competition. It's not, whatever. But right now, since he came back into the lineup, his PFF passing grade is in the same ballpark as Jaden Daniels and Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, these are good, and Josh Allen for that matter.
4-week stretch.
Yeah,
right?
It was since he.
I'm not questioning. I'm saying, was that the last 4 games, 5 games?
Yeah, 4. Yeah. 5 including this week. So 5-game stretch, very small sample size. All those usual caveats, but. Like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, albeit an injured rib, Jaden Daniels, Geno Smith, like these are the quarterbacks in the same area of PFF passing grade as Bryce Young. And now we're starting to stack up defenses where that's an achievement, right? Yeah. Kansas City, albeit not as good as last year, but Todd Bowles and his blitz defense. Like he's playing well. And in this game, right, one of his best passes, sideline play, not complete, the touchdown to Adam Thielen that they're like, no, he juggled it and then couldn't find an angle to prove that he actually didn't. Should have been a touchdown. Doesn't get it. Like, he's playing well, and some of his best passes are still incompletions.
He's ticking all the boxes in the how he's doing it. I cannot believe, I'm watching it right now again, the far hash deep comeback that he throws to David Moore. I cannot believe this throw.
It's an amazing throw.
He throws it. He starts throwing. I mean, David Moore still has like 2 or 3 steps in his vertical stem before he throws it, and he puts it pinpoint along the sideline. Far hash, 19 yards down the field, and it is right on him, and he drops it. It is unbelievable. And that might have been his best throw of the game. It's incomplete. And then the next play, he rolls out, hits a guy down the field for 38 yards. He's doing it all. He's doing it inside of structure, outside of structure. I know I'm saying this for 5 straight weeks here, but this matters because we were saying this before it showed up in the stat sheet. Yesterday it shows up more in the stat sheet, and against Kansas City more in the stat sheet. But he's doing everything that you want from a quarterback. It's not like, hey, they found this perfect scheme to kind of hide his deficiencies.
Everything's different.
Yes, everything's different. There's natural playmaking. There's inside structure, outside structure. Like he's not perfect, man. There's a couple deep balls that he threw out of bounds and everything yesterday that he was off on. But when you say he can make all the throws, there are no limitations to Bryce Young's game right now in this form the way he's playing. And I cannot believe how good this deep comeback was from the far half.
This is why the narrative around Bryce Young when he got benched was kind of annoying because everyone was like, you see, you just can't play in the NFL at that size. He's got a noodle for an arm. He's tiny. It was obvious, right? Anyone that had him high in the draft as a prospect is an idiot. This was never going to play at this level. You're like, well, it can, and it is now, right? And okay, we just talked the last 5 weeks, he's up there graded with some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Because shrinking your sample sizes is always better. So what about the last 2 weeks, right? If it holds with the second run of PFF grades on this week, he will have 9 big-time throws in the last 2 weeks, which would
lead the league.
And
it was against Spags' defense.
Yes.
Again, anticipation, pinpoint downfield throws. He's doing it, man.
And those 9 big-time throws will be against just 1 turnover-worthy play. So the last couple of weeks, it's not that he's just looking better. He's being efficient. He's, getting rid of the ball. His anticipation is good. He's sort of winning the Mac Jones way, right? He's also 9 big-time throws in 2 weeks, one of which was against the Spags defense and one of which was against Todd Bowles. That's insane.
Led a game-time comeback against the Chiefs last week. Hung tough in a game where they're supposed to get blown out. Led what,
he's led 2.
Should have been the game-winning
2 essentially
touchdown drive.
game-winning or comeback-type drives and hasn't gotten rewarded for either of them.
So anyway, I really think, again, barring a collapse, he's now an NFL quarterback. He's an NFL quarterback that will have his highs and lows. He'll have his ups and downs, right? He's not going to be great every single week.
He's not going to do four and a half big-time throws per week.
Yeah, he has shown us that he could play at the NFL level.
Yes.
And that year 3 of Bryce Young is something you can win with if you're the Panthers. And now maybe you can build your offseason around Bryce Young as your quarterback rather than saying, hey, I wonder if Quinn Ewers or Shadur or whoever else falls to us.
Well, fascinatingly, he's now showing the exact opposite of that ridiculous take of, well, this size, the noodle, it'll never play at this level. Anyone that thinks he should be drafted high is an idiot, right? Well, now you're like, okay, actually, he's not only is he capable of playing at this level, but apparently he's capable of playing at a very high level at this level. Now what do you do as a talent evaluator looking at tiny noodle-armed quarterbacks, right? Now I'm confused because what I thought like a couple of months ago was completely non-viable, it turns out is actually capable of playing at a high level.
And we got to wrap it up, but credit Dave Canales and the whole coaching staff for getting him, because the confidence is there, right? Because you talked about in Bama, you thought his anticipation, and you've backed off on this claim a little bit, but his anticipation was as good as that. Like, I'm just bringing it back. You were right, but his anticipation was as good as
it's just that it didn't exist
it wasn't
up until the last few weeks.
Now it's back. Like his anticipation and everything, and that's confidence, and that's something schematic that is saying trust what you see and then go play. They got him mentally right to get these results.
It
over
shows
these last few
how
weeks.
powerful that stuff is.
Yeah.
I mean, Canales has changed the offense, right? That I think he's doing a really good job at understanding what Bryce Young is good and bad at, moving the offense towards him and helping him out schematically, right? So that's definitely something you shouldn't overlook. Getting Adam Thielen back is an important thing as well. Like, there are things that have changed, so it's not just Bryce Young, but a large portion of the difference between a completely non-viable, the worst quarterback in the NFL, and a guy who right now is playing, a top half quarterback. Let's just set that bar. The difference between the worst quarterback in football and a top half quarterback is simply confidence. Like, the dude has gone from I'm lost, I feel like ass, I want to just go home and cry at the end of every game, to now the guy, he just looks happy. Like, the number of shots you see where Bryce Young's just got a big smile on his face, he's loving life.
Happy Bryce.
The difference between these two guys is just confidence.
And don't get me wrong, we'll tear him down again soon. We'll do that. Because Tua, right? Tua does all these things, and now we're like, oh, can you win with Tua? Is he good enough? Right. Can he compete with Josh Allen and Mahomes and Lamar? Can he do, like, we'll get there. But for right now, Bryce Young's a viable, good NFL quarterback playing outstanding football right now.
The last point I want to make is, remember when Alex Smith came back and one of the first things that happened to him was Aaron Donald jumped on his back like a backpack and sacked him, and everyone was like, ooh. Every time Vita Vea was chasing down Bryce Young, you're like, just hit the ground. Please don't let him get hold of you. Like, for the love of God, Vita Vea could pick him up and launch him like through the air one-handed. It's terrifying.
Bucks get the win. This was fun, though, to discuss.
Yeah.
All right, let's go Sunday Night Football to wrap it up here. Buffalo Bills get the win 35-10 over the 49ers. Bills 10-2 now, and the Niners fall to 5-7. Buffalo's won 7 straight. Lots to discuss here. Limited time. Heavy snow game. And one of the worst types. The people who complain about snow games probably complain about this type where just the footing was awful. We didn't see this in the Browns-Steelers game the other night.
Because it's grass versus turf.
Yeah.
And it's also heating. I think the Browns stadium has undersoil heating. The Bills one doesn't, maybe?
I thought the Bills did, and that's why so much of the snow got off the field. Anyway, Bills run game kind of unstoppable here. And then, of course, the famous play. Josh Allen, the first NFL quarterback, the first NFL player in history, Sam, to have a passing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and a rushing touchdown on 2 plays.
Yeah.
On just 2 plays. No, not this stat. That's a pedestrian stat. I don't care if he's the
Have
first
you actually
quarterback.
verified that, or is that still you just guessing?
There's no way anyone else has done that. Unless it was Tommy, what was his name? Ryan from the 1960?
Yeah.
Josh Allen's the first quarterback with a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown in the same game. But he did it on 2 plays.
Wait, was he the first? I thought he was the second to do that.
No, because I think there's only 2 guys. This only happened 4 times, and I don't think the other 3 had rushing touchdowns.
No, I think that was the stat, is that it had only happened.
Christian McCaffrey's done it,
right.
Like other non-QBs.
Oh, non-QB. So he's the second player, but first.
But I guarantee you he's the only player to do it on 2 plays.
Yeah, hopefully.
3 stats on 2 plays.
I don't care about that crap.
MVP.
That's just a quirk of NFL stats. What is far more interesting to me than that is that, let me take you back on a little journey through time to October the 16th, I believe. October the 14th. October the 14th, I tweeted that Josh Allen was busting his ass on that Ray Davis run to get in position to receive the lateral that only Josh Allen is crazy enough to attempt.
That's right.
Josh Allen looks for those laterals, and presumably there's a diktat given to every Buffalo player. Josh Allen's going to look for this play. Do not under any circumstances throw him the football, right? Amari Cooper, who's only been in the building a few weeks, has not yet had that conversation. So Amari Cooper was the huckleberry that Josh Allen has been looking for a while now. Cooper, with 3 guys converging on him to tackle, frees his hands in the tackle, offloads the ball to Allen, who's run a great support line, gets in for a touchdown with a Superman play. Phenomenal rugby play. This is why Josh Allen is great.
This is your Super Bowl here. I'm going to let you
I just love that October the 14th, I call this as something that was happening, and now December the 1st or whatever it was, it's executed.
Did you tweet that out?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just making sure you get full credit for it.
Yeah, I credit
Josh
myself.
goes to Amari. Yeah. Coach wants you to lateral that to me if you
right,
because you didn't get through the whole training camp where they tell you not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Good for Josh Allen. I love that his MVP moment is just catch. It was sick though in the
amazing play
in the snow.
I mean, there's something to look. I don't know how much you want your quarterback being the guy that takes those plays. There's a conversation to be had there. But there's something to the idea that 2 of the greatest players in the NFL / of the last X period, like the 2 guys that are tapping into this as a potential edge, Josh Allen and Travis Kelce, right? Like those guys see the
Randy
game.
Moss
Yeah.
had the big one.
Over shoulder blind.
He's
right.
got feel.
There are guys that understand the game at a different level to other people, and they understand the power of this lateral consistently. I mean, Ed Reed was always looking for or looking to get the lateral on turnovers on defense, right? Those are powerful plays. The Ray Davis one would have scored earlier if he'd been crazy enough to attempt the lateral to Josh Allen. Amari Cooper was crazy enough to attempt the lateral, and it turned a stop into a touchdown.
So you knew Josh Allen's looking.
Saw it coming.
You saw this all coming. Complete disparity in how prepared the Bills were for the footing and
what was the final
for the snow
tally for that the 6th offensive line stat
that Buffalo had?
Yeah, they were using 6 offensive linemen basically all the time.
I love it. I mean, it is tough to watch when you're so limited. I mean, it was actually one of the cool ways of using the next gen stats was that it was the slowest average route speed and all that. Like you get this, that's this guy's top speed. He hit 22 miles an hour. I think that kind of loses its luster after a while.
But it's an abstract term. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, but like when you can actually pull out, does this look like the slowest game you've seen all year? Well, it is. It is the slowest game because everybody's so careful about their footing. But yeah, Buffalo ran the ball like crazy. Finished with 220, including their kneel downs. James Cook, 14 carries for 107. Ray Davis with 63 yards on 11 carries. Both found the end zone. Josh Allen had the scramble for the touchdown. Great feel for that one. And he was efficient in the pass game where it was tough to throw and catch. 13 of 17 for Allen, including a touchdown pass to himself and one to Mac Hollins.
So Buffalo finished the game with a 6th offensive lineman on the field 30% of the time, which was a lot less. At one point it was at 40%. But is massive. Twice the amount that anybody else this week had on the field.
San Francisco couldn't get anything going offensively. Every time they started moving the ball, I mean, they had a couple big kick returns from Deebo Samuel, end up fumbling, turning the ball over as they had a chance to maybe get back into the game. That was like
game over at that point. Coming at it, they had their ass kicked in the first half. Coming out of the halftime, they got a nice return. They were driving. They got into the tight red zone. They tried a misdirection play to Kyle Juszczyk, and he fumbles basically at the goal line. Buffalo recovers, gets a solid recovery, and that's basically game over at that point. Taylor Rapp, I think, punched the ball out there. You can argue that Taylor Rapp saved 2 touchdowns in this game. He was the guy early in the game that got like the shoestring tackle on Christian McCaffrey on the one big run that he did threaten to break off. So Taylor Rapp arguably stopped 2 San Francisco touchdowns, each of which would have been pretty significant. So pretty high leverage plays by him. And then, of course, the other thing is McCaffrey popped something in his knee, and he's out.
I think as of now, they're calling it a potential season-ending PCL injury. Did you see the replay on that, too?
He just
slow-mo replay on his calf, knee.
Yeah, it just looked immediately gimpy.
Yeah, so he takes the pitch and just kind of goes down, knowing that there was something wrong there. So would that be completely disconnected from his previous injury, or is
Well, it was
I know the song, everything's connected.
Both Achilles, so hard to say.
That affects your rehab, your ability to get back. Oh, man, unfortunate
for
McCaffrey.
It's worth, the 49ers haven't been as good this year. They have also been extremely unlucky injury-wise. Like, most of their important players have missed significant portions of the season or at least a portion of the season. and that continued.
Well, they're like, we used to call the Rams stars and scrubs, right? Where they had high. I mean, that's the Niners are a more recent version of that. The stars are literally the best players at their position. Top 3 to 5 players at their positions.
All of the stars have been hurt.
And they've all been hurt at various times. Kittle stuck it out through some, but Debo's been in and out. McCaffrey barely been out there. Trent Williams out right now. Nick Bosa. They've had a lot of injuries.
Yeah. I mean, at various points, like the 49ers defensive tackles in particular couldn't even get out of their stance in this game. Like they were just falling over on the first step. That happened at least 3 plays in the first half. Buffalo handled the conditions better than San Francisco, but the 49ers are just too beat up.
Yeah, they are. So Buffalo makes you want some playoff games in Buffalo, doesn't it?
Yeah,
for sure. But look, part of this is playing in the conditions, and I think Chris was raving about it last night. Different ways to win. I think that's been the biggest story for Buffalo this year.
When was the last time you've seen a person as bundled up as Chris was in the broadcast? Look, he was wearing like 5 sweaters.
I don't blame him. It's freezing over there.
It's cold, yeah.
Yeah.
The coldest I've ever been in my life was a game in Buffalo when they played the Patriots, sitting on like the 300 level, about 20 feet away from the end of that horseshoe, like the end of the stadium.
In December, right?
Yes, wind howling in. Awful, awful cold.
Anything else on this game? Legendary play, and I think, if you're into the MVP races and all that stuff, this was prime time.
Allen's moment.
Allen had all the touchdowns, 3-on-2 plays, so it's his award.
It's like I've always said, this is why the MVP award is so great, because in the space of a couple of hours, we can go from Saquon wraps up MVP against Baltimore to Josh Allen just took it away from him on Sunday Night Football at a time where Saquon's in the tub. He's not even playing. He's just, I've done my work. I'm sitting back relaxing. Josh Allen can take it right away from him.
And I would tell you, if you were doing it analytically, the most valuable player in the NFL this year is Joe Burrow.
Wow.
That's the reality. But I would also say Lamar Jackson's playing way better than last year. But
he just had a bad game. Can't win it.
Last thing of note here, Buffalo Bills have clinched the AFC East.
Kansas City clinched, Buffalo clinched. Who was the third one?
Kansas City clinched a playoff
Detroit
spot.
Didn't. Oh, okay, the playoff spot.
The Bills have clinched the East, and here's what also makes that interesting. They've clinched the East, and they haven't even played the Patriots yet, a team in their own division.
Right.
They still have to play New England
Who they
twice.
presumably will beat twice.
Just saying, they haven't played one of their division rivals, and they already have the division
the
locked
worst
up.
Arguably the worst of their division rivals.
I just don't know how often that's happened, where division rivals haven't played and the division's already set.
And it could have been weeks ago if Miami hadn't resurged and won a couple of games.
It's absolutely true. Credit the Bills, 10-2. Niners, you're still technically in it, but now 2 games behind Seattle in the NFC West and falling apart. All right. I already gave PFF a shout-out calling us the podcast, but got to continue to give PFF a shout-out. PFF has you covered all season long with the best data, tools, and analysis in the game. Sign up for PFF Plus today to unlock all their famous player grades and premium stats. Push to the playoffs in your fantasy league with in-season tools and award-winning rankings from fantasy expert Nathan Yonke, and stay connected to the next generation of talent with the best NFL draft coverage on the planet. No matter what you're looking for, PFF Plus has what you need to make winning decisions. Visit PFF.com and sign up today for less than $10 per month. PFF Plus, powering winning decisions.
And as Mo Hall in the chat, we should really find out how to say that guy's name at some point. Last day of the PFF discount, so get on it now if you're going to get on it.
Oh, this is the last day? Yeah, so go check it out.
One last closing thought, if you will.
For Check the Mic, our podcast.
Correct,
here.
for our podcast, which is not the PFF podcast anymore. There have been a lot of interesting comments as to who or what I most closely resemble now that I have no hair from the neck up. There were a lot of newborn baby in the show last night. There was a couple of variants of cancer patient. Somebody said I look like the guy, Tom Hanks from Philadelphia, that kind of thing. And then this one, True North in the chat says I look like an addict informant on a 90s cop show. That's pretty good. I think my favorite one was the guy that said if I simply had a head of hair, I'd look late 20s, early 30s. I think maybe that's worth testing, or just rock up with a Jason Witten toupee next week,
Celebration to kick off the Creed halftime show. The dude who comes flying in at the famous Creed Thanksgiving. You have a little of that going, I think. Maybe we could get a Jason Witten toupee from somewhere. If I just show up complete, just a full head of hair, a perfect head of hair, and we just see if that's actually true. If I do look, late 20s, early 30s,
before I grow the beard back.
So you're gonna try that?
I mean, I don't know where you get it. That's
December's
syrup.
where you experiment with the.
Where does one even acquire a Jason Witten syrup from? I don't know.
Is this you?
I don't believe so.
Flying in from O2 Thanksgiving?
See, this is just outright racism is what this is. You just found a bald guy and said, this is you.
Bald guy with no facial hair, and it might be you.
Right. This is like, I don't look like him other than the fact that neither of us have any hair.
Do you ever rewatch the Creed halftime show from Thanksgiving of O2?
I don't, no.
You should.
Yeah.
It was spectacular.
All right. Can we stop being a show now?
Tonight, Browns and Broncos will be there to instantly react to it on YouTube, and our Wednesday show is back this week. Make sure you check that out. All right. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Wednesday. More. Check the mic.